Hey guys, welcome back to the KAALI BHEER podcast. My name's Urwah Bangi. This is a podcast where we talk about things that our community does not like to talk about. So today we're going to talk about Mormonism, and I have one of my childhood friends. Her name is Jessica. She's going to hop on with us, and we're going to talk about Mormonism. And I have some questions from you guys, and I'm really excited. It basically just stemmed from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, that TV show that went viral. But yeah, let's get her in here and get this party started.
Does that work? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey girl.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I took a shower, so I'm awake.
I haven't seen you in forever.
I know. I know. It's been a long time. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Life is lifing.
Isn't that the motto?
Yeah, you push through.
Yes, basically.
Okay, so should we just jump right in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about like how we know each other first,
Okay.
just because I feel like I don't know, I feel like that's important, but so we knew each other. I think I was 11. Do you remember how old you were?
We moved to Texas when I was 8, so I was probably like 9 or 10, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like that sounds about right. Wait, so you had moved the same time I did?
Let's see. When I was 8, we moved in 2007, 2008.
Okay, yeah. We were 2008, 2009.
Yeah, so it would have been, so I would have been 9 then, around 2008.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought you were
Yeah.
there the whole time.
No, because I was born in New Jersey, so we lived
Mhm.
there till I was about 7, and then that's when my dad got a new job, I think, and we just moved to Texas because of
Hmm.
it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. We moved to Texas because of my dad's job too, but we were only there for a year.
Oh, really? Was it that
Yeah.
short?
Yeah, we were only there for sixth grade, and then my mom was like, I hate this, we're moving back.
That actually makes sense because when everything happened with my dad, you guys weren't around.
Mm,
Um, and so that actually makes sense. I was like, when did they move away from Texas? Like my brain is now just finally putting everything
yeah.
together.
Yeah, I think that had happened with your dad about a year after we left, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think someone had called my dad and told my dad, and then he told us.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then I had tried to freaking Moshi Monsters. I had
Oh,
tried to find you on there and like check on you, but like I we didn't check that anymore. So it was
the
yeah,
lengths
I
you go
forgot.
through as a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah, I know, because it's not like we had Instagram. Like I couldn't just be
Yeah.
like, hey girl, like
Yeah.
that's the
That's
best I
so
could
cute.
do.
Oh, that's so cute. I'm actually glad you told me that. It's funny because I logged into Moshi Monsters like a few years ago to see if it still existed. I was like, this game brought me serotonin.
I know. And do you remember on like Sundays? Because you weren't allowed to like come out on Sundays.
Mm-mm. No, because I mean, I guess it's part of jumping in, but as Mormons, Sunday is the like holy day. It's the day where
Mhm.
no technology, no playing with friends, no playing on the trampoline, no swimming in pools. It's supposed to be a day of rest where you just are centered on everything God and Jesus Christ related.
Mhm.
And so all of my friends would be playing on Sundays and they'd be like, "Can you come over?" And I'm like, "I can't."
Yeah.
But yeah, we couldn't do any of that stuff on Sundays, which is why I think it's kind of funny that I'm talking about this on a Sunday.
I didn't notice that, but that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we used to talk on Moshi Monsters on Sundays.
Yes. Well, yeah. I guess you could say I was always the rebellious child. Which is funny because a lot of the time I also wanted to like, make my parents proud and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
there's also the part of me that's like so rooted in independence that I
Hmm.
was like, I should be able to do my own things. I shouldn't have to, because imagine just not doing anything on a Sunday. Like as a kid, it is the most boring
Yeah.
thing ever. Like any music we listened to was church related or Enya, which is funny because Enya made the pass, but anything church related, anything we watched was church related, anything we read was church related.
Hmm.
And so Moshi Monsters was kind of my escape. Because I was like, this is so boring. Like, I know I should be worshiping, God, but I'm so bored.
I mean, as a kid, like, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
But yeah, since we didn't really clarify, we were neighbors growing up in
Oh, yes.
yeah. Because a lot of people don't know, but yeah, I lived in Texas for a year, and then my mom hated it. We moved back. But yeah, we were neighbors. I feel like I don't know, I think we talked about this already, but I feel like I was closer to you than you were to Huda.
hmm Yes, it's because Huda was always, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name. That's how I've always pronounced it. So I apologize. But you and Huda were always around me and my sister
Mhm.
Becky. She goes by Rebecca now, which sounds a little too formal for me, so I'm just gonna call her Becky. But we were always around each other, but I think because I resonated with you as the older sibling, that
Mhm.
as an oldest sibling as well, I was like, I think it was easier for me to interact with you and be friends with you, just because I feel like you can resonate with this, but it's very lonely being the
Mhm.
oldest or an older sibling.
Yeah.
It's very isolating,
Mhm.
because even though some parents might say they don't want to, they've never gave you responsibility, you kind of inherit that as an older
Mhm.
sibling. And so, it's funny because as a kid, um, and we've talked about this before, but you were always kind of more on the serious side. And I just resonated with that because I was like, she's mature, she understands. Like she understands me. And I think even throughout when we did our paper crafts, we made little outfits and stuff like that for little models. I was like, I can understand. I get along with her. And it's funny because I remember one day when I went to school, you were wearing this, what's, the monkey on the shirt, and I forget the name of it.
Oh my God, yes, I still have that shirt.
You were wearing that shirt, and I was like, oh, she's so cool. You were in the cafeteria just wearing that shirt, and I was like, oh, she's so cool. I forget the name of the shirt. It's like Frankie something, but yeah, that's a core memory right there.
That's so funny that you remember that so like detailed. Because I remember the shirt, but I don't remember wearing it.
Yeah, I don't know my how my brain works. It's kind of like nice, but also kind of sucks is that like certain memories that they just like grapple onto
Mm.
my brain. Like
Mm.
I don't know what it is, but that is always something that I've always remembered is walking in the cafeteria with you wearing that shirt.
How funny. I'm trying to think what my main memories are. I remember we watched Twilight together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was like a Twilight fanatic. I remember that. I remember there was this argument. This is like the randomest memory. You're gonna be like, what the heck? But like there was this one of the neighbors had come over to your house and we were there too. And we were playing upstairs and something had happened and your mom had looked at you and said, like, if you want someone to leave, you can tell them to leave. And I was just sitting there like, am I about to be told to leave? Because like I don't get along with a lot of people because of the
Yeah.
neurodivergence. Like people tend to be like, she's too controlling. She's this, she's that.
Yeah.
And so I really clashed with this neighbor. And I was just sitting there like, am I gonna be asked to leave? I didn't. But like I remember
Okay.
that so vividly.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so different for me. My mom's never given me that option.
Yeah. I think it has to do with my mom, and I don't know if you remember my mom very well, but she's always been a very um strong and
Hmm.
confrontational, not in a negative sense, but in a she when she feels a certain way, she's going to say it and she's going to tell you how
Hmm.
it is. Um, and so that's something that she kind of instilled in me growing up.
Hmm.
And it's actually interesting because in the church, there's it's almost like women are they seem inferior to men.
Hmm.
It's kind of just how the hierarchy goes, and I'm sure like further on I'll touch in on it, but my mom was kind of an anomaly in the sense where she didn't let that determine what she said or did.
Hmm.
And she was always fond of you guys. It's funny because when I had told her when you ship my sister makeup, which if you guys don't
Mm.
know, Irma shipped my sister a bunch of makeup, and my sister, my younger sister Bella, she's obsessed with makeup. She didn't have a lot, and Urwa was kind enough where she was like, I have all this extra makeup. Let me send it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she will love it. Because she had reached out to me, but I was like, no, give it to my sister. Like, she loves it and needs it. Bella has been using it nonstop.
I know
And
I've been seeing her look. She's so good.
she's so talented. She just has so
So
much
good.
talent. And she was
Yeah.
like, you were my blueprint. And I was like, don't say that
Oh,
because you are so much better than I am. And I was telling my mom, Urwa's in it. She's like, oh my gosh. She was like, I remember them. She was like, you always played with Urwa and she was always so kind. And same with your parents, because I had gone over to your house a few times.
mm.
And I remember your dad more than your mom, but your dad was always very kind to us, very, very sweet man. And so yeah, she always has good things to say about you.
Oh, that's so nice. I know. I remember your mom was very assertive, but like in a good
Yes.
way. Like I don't think
Yes.
I never thought she was rude. And I liked that she gave you that option. I really did. Even though I was like, dang, am I about to leave? Like, but I like when I grew up and I thought about it, like I was like, I like that she gave you that option.
Yeah. Yeah, she
Yeah.
was it's always something that I find very fortunate to have as an aspect of her mothering is the fact that she is assertive and did
Mhm.
teach me that. Even though it did get me in trouble sometimes. I did appreciate that she taught me that.
Yeah. You know, Texas was the best year of my life because
Really?
yeah, because like growing up here, like we had neighbors that were our age, but they were very very like reserved, I guess. So
Yeah.
like they would come out and play, but like we were out playing like every single day except Sundays. But like we
Yeah.
were playing, you know? And so it was just nice. It was nice to have people that I got along with and have friends. And actually when we moved back, like that's the first time I developed mental health issues because it was
Yeah.
so hard on me to go from because here I'm like bullied. I'm bullied in the Brown
Yeah.
community, bullied at school. And then like over there I wasn't bullied at school. I had friends. And so like to come back, I was like, dang, like this is the worst. But
Yeah.
yeah. I remember your guinea pigs too. Because
Oh my,
I remember being like, what is this? Like,
did you ever know that my dad threatened to eat them? I don't know what should. So, okay, so I had three. I had Gizmo. Um, he's the only one I really remember because he was chunkier and he was
mm,
constipated, so you had to make him do a bowel movement. And so, anyways, my dad was from Ecuador. So in Ecuador, they have a food called cuy, which is guinea pig. They eat guinea pig there. But we had these guinea pigs, and my dad decided let's make them outdoor pets. I don't know what in his brain thought that making them a little home outside in our yard was a smart idea. Because they did escape, and one of them, and I think one or two of them did pass away. But one day I'm just sitting at the table, and my mom's like getting ready for dinner. And I vividly remember this. He comes in and he's holding a black trash bag. And you can tell that there's something in the black trash bag. And he goes, well, Wendy, I know it's for dinner. And my mom goes, oh, Danny, you can't eat the kids' pets. And I was like my brain was like comprehending, but also like not comprehending. Like part
mm.
of me was like, what are they talking about? And now as an adult, I'm like, he was making a joke about eating my guinea pigs.
Did he
um,
ask you them?
no. We didn't actually, and
Okay.
he said after that, he said, you're right, we don't know how long they've been dead. Now again, I don't know if that was a joke. Um, or but like I said, in Ecuador, it's really common to eat
Mm,
guinea pig. And so I mean, as a kid, I could see why that would be traumatizing. Fortunately for me, it was not traumatizing.
mm,
Um, it might seem insensitive to laugh at it, but that's just, I don't know, it's just part of what his culture was. So for me, it's
mm.
like, wow, he really was gonna eat them. But yeah, so that's what happened to them. They did not survive.
Oh, that's
um it was sad because it was like we my dad had built like a whole like there was I don't know if you've ever seen in the garages this wooden cart thing. It's like very deep
Mm-hmm.
and people would put tools in there. So he
Mm-hmm.
took that and he built a home inside. So he built like a ramp and some levels um before they were outside. And so that's where, they would play and stuff like that. But I don't think he would have actually. He just, that's just his way of joking. But it was a very fond memory to have those.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very fun.
Yeah. I think I remember the little wooden cart thing. Because I remember my dad would stand in your garage and talk to your dad for like hours. And I would just walk over and look at the guinea pigs. Cause like for us, pigs like are like forbidden.
Yeah.
And so my brain didn't register that this is like a different animal. I heard pig and I'm like, this is
You're
pig.
like, keep it away.
I'm like, what is this? But you know what I was thinking about the other day is I had no idea you were Mormon when we lived there.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like um I feel like there's two different types of Mormons. There's Utah Mormons, which has recently become very
Mm.
publicized, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's other Mormons, which I feel like are not as the word just passed. They're not as like open or
Hmm.
openly different.
Yeah.
It wasn't something too that like, we go around and say like, oh yeah, we're Mormon.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it was also like because we lived in Texas, because we were surrounded by so much diversity, and I
Hmm.
say more because Utah is not diverse at all. And
Yeah.
I live in Utah now. And so for us, it was a lot easier to assimilate into everyone around us
Hmm.
because we were so used to different cultures, different religions, different people. Like we were so used to it that it wasn't hard for us to blend in.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I sometimes, people would know I'm Mormon, like especially those who I went to church with, but it wasn't something I always felt comfortable talking about.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it was me at a young age thinking like, oh, this is kind of weird, but it's all I have ever known.
Hmm.
I don't know if that was me subconsciously reacting and protecting myself,
Hmm.
because I mean I'm no longer a member, but yeah, that was something that we didn't really tell anyone. It was a lot easier for us to assimilate when, especially if people don't know you're Mormon. I feel like in back then it wasn't that hard to be Mormon, because obviously with the new show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and that publicity, a lot of people are, gaining some interest in, oh, what is Mormonism?
Yeah.
And when you get into it, there are definitely red flags, but because it wasn't as well known back then, it was easier to just, be a Mormon as well.
Yeah. See, I feel like I think in Texas there's just so many different people that I
Oh yeah.
didn't register it. Like you said, oh, I can't play on Sundays, and I was just like, okay, that's fine. Like I didn't
Yeah.
question it or anything. But like here where I live now in California, because I'm in the Central Valley, there are so many Mormons here. Like it's actually insane. And I knew of Mormons the second that I got into. So I don't live in a Mormon area, but
Hmm.
my mom does.
Oh, okay.
So like it's the same city, but like and she's only 10 minutes down the street, but like her area is more like filled with Mormons. Like there's like three churches within walking distance of
Oh
her
my
house.
goodness.
Yeah. So when I went to elementary school here, because I live in my childhood home, there was like
Hmm.
no Mormons. But then when I
Okay.
went to middle and high school, they have like we call it like the hill, the Mormon hill, because they like hang out in this one area and they still
Hmm.
do like 10 years later, they still hang out in this one area because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Even though I knew them, I still had no idea you were Mormon until like I think like 2 years ago when you started posting about it and I was like, yo, like what? Like that's why you couldn't play on Sundays.
Yeah, like everything started connecting. And I feel like that also happened for a lot of people because it's like, a lot of the ways that it was happening, and then later on they'll be like, oh my gosh, wait, you were Mormon. I was like, yes,
Hmm.
yes, I was. And it's funny that you mentioned that you know, when you were there in elementary, you didn't really either you weren't aware or there didn't seem to be a
Mm,
lot, and now there's like a bunch. Um, it's it's funny because there was definitely a boom of Mormons, I
mm,
think, between when like we were in middle school and high school. I think
mm,
that was when it reached its peak of growing in
mm,
height.
mm,
Um, and California, I think it's California, Las Vegas, Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, Utah, lots of Mormons.
mm,
You know, Utah is majority members, and then usually the surrounding states also have branches, or you know, other Mormons as well.
mm.
And I'm also talking about like the fundamentalists, like FLDS are right outside of Utah, which that's very sad. But I don't know if you've seen any of the documentaries. Back it was like a
Mm.
while ago, like a couple years ago, on one of the platforms they released was a keep sweet and obey or something like that, which
Oh, I've
touched
heard
on the
that.
yeah,
Mm,
it touched on the FLDS, which is unfortunately a branch from the original Mormonism. But yeah,
mm.
there was definitely a boom, so that makes sense why all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by
Yeah.
Mormons.
A random question. Why did all of the Mormons, like, or most of them, I guess, go to Utah? Like, why is that a Mormon state?
So this kind of has to do with the history of the church. So for those who don't know what Mormonism is, Mormonism is they would consider it a branch of Christianity, which you know Christianity it's a belief in Jesus Christ, a belief in God, which that is true. But what made it different is a lot of their policies and a lot of how it was founded. So
Mm,
it was 1873, I believe. There was this young um this young white kid from New York, and he was like, none of these religions feel true, none of these religions make sense. So he said a prayer, and a prophet appeared to him, and said that there is a true church, and that if he waited, that he would discover what the true church was, and that he would be the pillar to the true church.
mm,
So fast forward, he goes to a grove, he finds the plates, which are now considered the doctrine of the church, the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, Doctrine and Covenants. There's a lot of books. Um, and so when Joseph Smith became, you know, the head of church, the prophet,
mm,
um, a lot of the communities, and this was founded on the East Coast,
mm,
and a lot of these communities, a lot of these other religions were like, these Mormons are frauds, these Mormons are fake. And so the reason that the Mormons made it to Utah is because they were being persecuted on the East Coast. And
mm,
so Joseph Smith, coincidentally at the same time as they were being persecuted, was like, I have been told that we're supposed to move to what is now Utah.
mm,
And so they pioneered, and this is very important to them. They actually, in Utah, they have a Pioneer Day, which is, I think it's July 24th. And it's when they celebrate the sacrifices made by their Mormon ancestors of trekking from the East Coast all the way to Utah. And at this point, Utah hadn't really been, um, I guess, colonized as much at that point.
mm.
There was still a lot of land. There were a lot of Native Americans there as well, which the Mormons, there's also a lot of history with that. But let's just say the Mormons did not treat them very well.
Mm,
Part of, you know, colonialism.
mm,
And so to them, Utah was like their central area. You know, they felt safe there. They felt welcome there. And it's funny because in back then as well in Utah, when polygamy started, and I think that's a lot another thing that people, you know, are very interested in is when it comes to polygamy in the church. Um,
I didn't get asked that, but let me write that down because I want to hear more.
well, it's funny too because I was like, they didn't ask about polygamy. I was like, polygamy is like sometimes one of the things that people are like, are you guys really polygamous? Yes,
Maybe they didn't
Mormons.
know because I mean, we'll
Yeah.
talk about this later on, but like, I don't think there's many Mormons in the UK.
No, actually, there's only about 185,000, which is about a less than a third of the population, I think, which
Mm,
that could also be the church does this thing where when they take a census, they include inactive members. If you have an ID in the church, whether you're going to church or not, they will include you in part as their active members for their census. Which is why, which is why a lot of inactive people remove their records because they're
Mm-hmm.
like, you're not counting me as part of it because I don't go to your
Yeah.
church. But was always safe for the Mormons until when they started practicing polygamy.
Mm-hmm.
The government was like, okay, this is wrong. If you guys don't stop polygamy, we are going to go to war with you. And coincidentally, again, at the same time, they're like, we have a prophecy. We should stop polygamy. God has told us we should stop. And that's when the FLDS branched out because these FLDS were fundamentalists that were like,
Mm-hmm.
we should be doing polygamy. But
What exactly is polygamy? I've heard it before, but I don't really know, like,
yeah, polygamy is when you are married to more than one wife. I guess it could also be a
um,
man,
mm-hmm.
but so the church, I don't remember what year it was, but it was probably like around the 1880s, 1890s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the prophets were like, I Joseph Smith himself was like, I've been commanded by God to take on more than one wife. His wife at the time was Emma,
Mm-hmm.
and the church likes to say Emma was a dutiful wife and understood. Emma did not like that. Emma had journals. um, she did not like that, especially because Joseph Smith had so many wives. His youngest wife was 14, actually. Yes, 14. And he was, oh God, I think at this point he was in his late 20s or early 30s, and he married a
Oh my
14-year-old.
gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And so what I was taught the reasoning for polygamy was because back then when the Mormons were getting persecuted, the men
Mm-hmm.
would get killed and these wives would be left with no property, no nothing because they women did not have the I don't know, authority about the power to, obtain property.
Yeah.
And so to protect these women, they married these women. So that way they did have, a man to come home to, the men just thinking like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're taking care of the woman. In reality, it was one man saying, I want to marry more than one wife. Um, and so that's kind of when polygamy started. And some of these men had like 10, 12 different wives. Like they had a lot of different wives. And like I said, it wasn't taken away from the church until the government stepped in and was like, hey, what you're doing isn't right. We don't like this at all. We will come for you. And that's when they had the revelation that, oh no, like we need to stop polygamy. And a lot of what you see in Mormonism, a lot of changes they make, coincidentally, God tells them to around the time that another thing is happening publicly. And I'm sure we'll get into that because I know people had asked about, people of color and Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get into that, you'll see that too.
I just, I don't understand the logic. Like, God couldn't have told you that earlier.
It's funny because I've had this conversation with my stepdad because I'm not a member, but my immediate family still is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that I told him, was like, why, why is God telling these prophets these things? Like, why didn't he tell them sooner? Why didn't he do this? Didn't do that? And he was like, well, men are flawed. That's why you have to seek for it yourself. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense though. Why are you in the church with these flawed men when you could be seeking it for God yourself? And he was like, because, the men are imperfect, but the church itself is perfect. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like if you like you're telling me that these prophets are flawed,
Mm-hmm.
that God is perfect, but you still listen to these men and these prophets because they are spokespersons of God.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense to me now. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. So, from what I'm understanding, Mormonism is basically just this one dude who just made stuff up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's funny because when we're taught about him, you know, translating the plates,
Mm-hmm.
because now we have books. It's funny because they say he translated them with this device, and some people, and there's actually history that it's like he looked into a hat and had like he was like magic, like he was using magic. Like there's just so many different things, and it's like if you have so many different sources for what happened, does it not make you question whether or not it was just because the man wanted control of the situation? Because if
Mm-hmm.
we're being honest, I mean, a lot of history has to do with men thinking that they deserve all the power
Mm-hmm.
and, taking what they want, taking what they will, and taking it into their own hands.
Yeah.
And so that's my whole thing is that it all founded by one man. Like, and if you look into the history, because the Book of Mormon, it
Mm-hmm.
details back to before Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying this stuff happened in America, like this North American continent. There is no proof. There's no
Mm-hmm.
fossils, there's no bones, there's no geographical evidence that what you are saying that is happening in these books before Christ happened in America. Like, does that not make you think or question whether this church is true? If you want to have a relationship with God, that is possible completely, You
Mm-hmm.
yourself can have that relationship. You
Yeah.
yourself can, speak with God and interact with him and have the relationship.
Yeah.
And but the church is almost like a middleman,
Mm-hmm.
and I wish, some people realize you don't need it to have that relationship with God at
Yeah.
all.
Absolutely. And for the record, like I texted you this, like
Hmm.
your experience is your experience and you have your perspective and it's
Yeah.
100% valid.
Yeah.
For those that have different perspectives, I don't really care. I respect anyone and their beliefs. I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me either, but hey, if someone wants to believe that, that's their prerogative. That's cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do want to ask the Latter-day Saints, where does that come from? Like, I'm so confused.
So it's funny because if you say Mormon now, a lot of people get offended.
Oh, really?
Yes, so they did this thing a few years ago because they've always been called Mormons, based off of the Book of Mormon, based off of their prophet Mormon.
Mm,
But a few years ago, they're like, no, like we are not Mormons. We are Latter-day Saints. We are LDS. So for example, my stepdad, if I say Mormon, he gets offended. He's like, LDS. I'm like, I'm sorry, have it. But so the name of Mormonism, or the name of the church, is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the name comes from Mormons. A lot of what they do now is because they're preparing for the future. I mean, you see this in a lot of religions where it's like they prepare for a
mm,
doomsday, if you will.
yeah.
So a lot of the Latter-day Saints comes from, you know, honoring the people who came from before them, but also preparing for the future where they're going to be the most perfect saints possible, be
Mm,
God's chosen.
mm,
Um, the in Mormonism, you have to follow steps to become, I guess, the ultimate saint, the perfect saint.
mm,
You get baptized, you make covenants in the temple. Um, we have these temples and we have these covenants that we make, and that's actually when you get garments.
mm,
A garment signifies your promise to keep covenants that you made in the temple. So that's why a lot of these people wear garments. Is to them it's like their armor, their shield, their promise that I'm keeping the covenants, and I, because I'm keeping the covenants, I'm going to wear this every single day. Um, and so that's where the Latter Day Saints came from, is because to them, when everything happens, they are the only ones who are going to be left. They are the only ones who are going to
mm,
be,
mm.
um, I don't know, I guess saved.
Yeah.
And they actually have this complex so deeply that they do something called baptisms for the dead. Sounds
Oh.
weird. Yes. They're not baptizing like dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Baptisms for the dead is an ordinance where they believe that people who have already passed on, there are
Mm-hmm.
missionaries on the other side, and they are teaching them, and
Mm,
they're ready to be baptized into the church and become a member. So, and you start this at 12 years old. Now, mind you, you're a 12-year-old kid going to the temple and you're basically baptizing by proxy. So you're getting baptized, and instead of saying your name, they say the name of the deceased relative, deceased person.
Mm.
And to them, that's being like, okay, they're, they're baptized. Um, they now can go through the next steps. So that's how far their complex is that to them, they're like, oh, we can baptize in the name of dead people and they will also be saved.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that would freak me out as a 12-year-old.
Um, I feel like most 12-year-olds it would, but as someone, I was in it since I was born. I was in church for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It just becomes normalized. It's everything you breathe, live, see is
Mm-hmm.
through the lenses of Mormonism.
Yeah.
So for me, baptizing dead people, I had been hearing about it for so long that I was like, oh yeah, this is normal. But now looking back, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that is not normal. No 12-year-old should be spending their Saturday night, you
Yeah.
know, baptizing for the dead. Like looking back, I'm like, that is definitely not normal. That is not, I mean, and this is no disrespect to, what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have hatred in my heart for the church. I don't, for me, it's more of just awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also because the church has a lot of stances that are harmful. And I
Yeah.
still have members who are dear friends. I still have people who are members that I love dearly. And I did have wonderful experiences being a member, but I guess it's just I wish there was more awareness and more of independence because like I said, I've always been an independent person. And when you're raised in something that's completely surrounding your everyday life, they say you have agency, you have the choice. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
living, breathing, eating, your friends are Mormons, your parents are Mormons, everything you do is, regarding the church, that's not really agency, that's
Mm-hmm.
conditioning. You're being conditioned to be the perfect Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess that leads us to where you currently stand with it and what led you there.
Yes. So I'm no longer a member. I guess I'm considered an ex-Mormon,
Mm-hmm.
which in Utah kind of has a bad connotation. Um, and really, it's funny because people think that with ex-Mormons that, or members, I should say, think with ex-Mormons,
Mm-hmm.
it's because we want to sin. We want to do all these things. We want to go out drinking and taking drugs and partying and having sex. Like that's literally their idea of
Mm-hmm.
ex-Mormons. Um, my situation and a lot of people's situations were not like that. About 4 years ago, I guess over 4 years ago, no, it was around 4 years ago. So, I had just gotten married in a temple. My husband Hunter was also a member. He served a mission. He did everything he was supposed to. He was in Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. We got married, and I really started thinking about the future, about kids. Which is funny because when most people when they first get married, they're like, we're not having kids for a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case with Mormons. We are taught to procreate as fast as we can and as much as we can.
Yeah.
So you get like I got engaged 1 month after dating, and then I got married that summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so everything is a faster timeline. So my brain being in that mindset was like, okay, we got married. What about kids? What about the future? And I had already been struggling because in Texas, when I was a member, I was accepted, I was loved. I have always had tattoos and am part of Mormonism, which apparently they've changed it a bit. But one of their not laws, but like basically something they wanted you to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't an ordinance something. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but they basically were like you shouldn't have tattoos. Your body is a temple, like you shouldn't mark it. I knew I had always wanted tattoos. I got tattoos. I wasn't seen any differently. If in fact they made me a teacher. They made me a Sunday school teacher, which now I realize it's because they wanted to show diversity. I mean, if you're coming in, you see a teacher with tattoos, you're like, oh yeah, I'll be accepted. Anyways, um, we moved to Utah. I got married. The church here is so different. I my tattoos were showing. I remember we went to church. We went to our ward. That's, that's how they call it, as a ward. Um, there was a lot of other people my age, young
Mm-hmm.
married couples, and they all look similar. I don't look like them, and none of them talked to us. None of them. They would all talk to each other. We even sat near them. No one talked to us. The only people who talked to us were those who were obligated. So the bishop, the Relief Society president, which is over the woman, the elders quorum president over the men, introduced themselves to us. No
Mm-hmm.
one else talked to me. No one else wanted to get to know me. And I remember feeling so lonely because one of the things that Mormonism gives you is a community. But in
Yeah.
Utah, if you are not like them, you are not given that community. And the so I had already those seeds of doubt had already been planted in my brain at that point. And I remember a video popped up, I think it's on TikTok or YouTube, and it just said why I left the church. And I was like, mm, should I be watching this? Because, as Mormons are taught, if you're
Mhm.
questioning, you should pray. But if you're seeking
Yeah.
it out, like seeking out these things, that's not really good. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna watch it. And it was this guy who he had always been a member his whole life. He served a mission. He went to BYU, which is Brigham Young University, the Mormon school here in Utah. He had done everything faithful that he needed to do. And then he had kids. And he was like, should I really raise my kids in this? If I do this, they're not gonna have any other option. Like, do I need to? And I remember the thing that really hit my head was he said, I wanted my kids to view the world in lenses that weren't just Mormon, in ways where it's like they didn't have to have a reasoning or a consequence behind everything. If
Mm-hmm.
they listened to a song with a cuss word, oh my gosh, God is gonna hate me. They didn't have to feel that way. If they
Yeah.
saw a flower on their walk, they're not immediately being like, oh my gosh, did God create this? Did God do this? They're just appreciating for it for what it is, a flower. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, have I ever viewed the world outside of that? And I was like, do I want my kids to constantly have that mindset? Because that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure as a person to constantly be worried about a consequence. Um, and I remember thinking to myself, no, I don't want that for my kids. I want my kids to feel free and have that ability to do what they want. If they later on in life, when they're older, decide they want to be Mormon, okay. But that's because they made that decision, not because they were constantly surrounded by it. Or if they wanted to be baptized or baptized, Baptists or Protestants or Muslim or
Mm-hmm.
whatever they wanted to be, if that would be 100% their decision because they researched it,
Yeah.
not because they had any influence by me. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I think I'm done. And I remember I was terrified of telling Hunter because another thing in Mormonism, mixed marriages in the sense where it's like you have one member who's believing, one member who's not, is kind of not frowned upon, but it's something to be wary of.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what if Hunter wants to divorce me? Like, I was so worried. And I remember I was like, Hunter, I need to talk to you about something. And I came to him, I was like, I don't think I want to go to church anymore. And the first thing he says is, thank God, I don't want to anymore either. And I was like, huh. And again, like you would think you would know your partner well enough,
Mm-hmm.
but because you get married so fast, you
Yeah.
don't get to know them. So I was just like, so in reality, he had been wanting to stop a while, but he was going through the motions because, he had me who he thought wanted to go to church, felt all this way. And so shortly after we got married, we were like, okay, we're done. And a lot of what, again, Mormons don't realize is that it's so hard because you're
Mm-hmm.
raised in this your whole life, and then all of a sudden it's like a switch. You don't believe it, but subconsciously every decision you make, you're trying to break that habit of, oh my gosh, there's a consequence. Oh my gosh, there's this, there's
Yeah.
that. Um, I remember for a while I would never say, "Oh my God." And if some people don't like that, I won't say it, but I would never say that. And I remember one
Mm-hmm.
time it slipped out and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I was like, "Wait a minute. I don't believe in this. Like it's okay." and also the loss of community, which I guess moving to Utah, that kind of helped because I already lost the community because everyone here is so similar. But also just like, when you go to church, you have activities, you have dances, you have all these things. I didn't go to those anymore. And so it was so hard for me because I was like, I don't believe in this, but this is part of my identity so long. I have to figure out who I am outside of being a member, which I'm still working on it. But after 4 years later, it's a lot different. And honestly, I'm very proud of myself for doing that, for figuring out who I want to be.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we are now. I mean, we don't go to church or anything. I mean, my kids sometimes will go because my sister will be like, "Oh my gosh, can we take them to church with us?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because they're babies and they have like this thing called nursery, which is basically the kids just play all day. And I was like, "Get Dallas's energy out. Let him play."
Mm.
Um, but yeah, we're fully out now.
Do you feel like your quality of life has gotten better since?
Yes and no.
Mm.
And with the yes, I think the quality in the sense where it's like I feel much more comfortable being in my own skin.
Mm.
Another thing I hid from myself is I closeted myself as a member. I am bisexual
Mhm.
and I refused to believe it when I was a member. Everyone else knew it. My parents knew it, but I was like, no. I was like, I'm not. I
Mhm.
do I have crushes on girls? Yeah, but everyone has crushes on girls. Like it's not nothing. It's not anything. Um, I was closeted for so long. I also mental health is such a stigma in the church,
Mm.
and I had to suppress it all. And
Mm.
Urwah knows, but I have a lot of trauma from when I was a kid. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Um, Mental health is not talked about in the church. And so as a kid, I just felt wrong. I felt like that's just the way to put it. I was wrong as a teenager. I was wrong as an adult. I was wrong. And now it's like I can cry and it's okay. I can be anxious and it's okay. I can be depressed and it's okay. No one's going to sugarcoat me. No one's going to tell me, like, just be happy. Like, this is just a trial from God. That's another thing. They're always like, this is just a trial from God that you're going to come stronger out of. And I'm like, can I just let it be my depression? Like, does it have to be a trial? This
Yeah,
is,
and there's like this shame that comes with it too, is like
yeah,
you should be ashamed that you feel depressed. And that
yes,
makes the depression so much worse.
yes. And it really does. And and I guess that is one of the that's one of the no parts is because the quality of life, my mental illnesses are definitely more apparent now.
Hmm.
It's freeing, but it comes at a cost.
Hmm.
My panic attacks are a lot worse. When I have not a meltdown. When my depression gets so bad that I just break, it's a
Hmm.
lot worse because I let myself feel it. I let
Yeah,
myself go through the motions, which, you should. But when you're in the church, it's like everything is, you slap a band-aid on it and you move on. Like,
been
this is a trial.
suppressed for so long.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. So, in that sense, my quality of life, like, it's a good thing that I'm feeling these emotions, but I definitely have never had them so just a like part of my everyday life. I don't think there's a day where I don't get anxious or I don't get depressed. Like, and
Hmm.
it's something that I'm gonna live with for the rest of my life. But now it's like it's open, it's out there. There's no barrier, there's no wall, it's just there.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry
nice
that
to
I teared up a
know
bit.
this. No, you're fine, dude. You're fine. And like I said, like feel free to share as much as you want and not
Yeah,
share as much as you want. Like it's
yeah,
totally up to you. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but
yeah.
it's fascinating to hear that like all the history and then how it can affect someone. Like it sounds very toxic positivity.
Yes. You're forced to be positive. You're
Mhm.
forced to see the good in everything. And it's
Yeah.
like, what if I don't want to? And that's okay. Like, and they do the same thing with people. Like, um, there's been a lot of studies that, and here's the thing. So in the church, there's a lot of history and, trigger warning for any of those out there, sexual abuse. There's a lot of that in the church. Bishops are not mandated reporters. a bishop is like a priest, the person you talk to. They do not have to they don't have to report.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these undercover things are happening. And I had something happen to me. And I remember I came up to the bishop, or not the bishop, I came up to one of the priesthood leaders. And you know what's so funny is that they told me that I couldn't say anything because the guy had the priesthood and it would ruin his life. He had the priesthood. He had the power of God in him. And I just remember feeling like it was I was so insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because they have something of God doesn't mean they're a good person. And I was like, and just because you think that doesn't mean they're a good person. It's
Mm-hmm.
like they want to see the good in everything, even if it's terrible. And that should not be the case. I mean, Ruby Frankie, I mean, I don't know if you heard about that. Um,
No idea who that is.
so Ruby Frankie was a YouTuber, like a very large YouTuber, and she
Mm-hmm.
became popular because she's Mormon and she was very strict on her kids, like taking away their bed strict. And people have this fascination watching vloggers who are like that. Well, the kids had always said her oldest daughter had always said there's stuff going on, stuff going on. No one said anything. Everyone's like, oh, Ruby Frankie's such a nice person. They found her child had escaped the home and he had tape around his legs. He was emaciated. He had they were abused. But the church, and it's funny because the church had known. The church didn't do anything about it. But again, when things come out like this, publicity comes into place and they're like, we had no idea. They did have an idea because her co-conspirator, Jody Hildebrandt, was a therapist that the church recommended to people. Like, there's no way they didn't know. And so that's a common thing is they take things and they're like, no, 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 there's good to this. There's good to things. There doesn't have to be good to everything. If someone's a bad person, I'm allowed to think they're a bad person. They are
Exactly.
a bad person. If
Mm-hmm.
life is sucking at the moment, that is okay. Life is sucking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a trial. Life is sucking, and I'm okay to feel bad about it. I don't
Yeah.
have to get over it. I don't have to do this. I can go through the motions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And I just think that, like, logically, do they realize that when they do that, they're painting God to be bad? Like, I don't think that
Yeah.
they, like, I don't know, maybe it's like some extreme form of brainwashing. But when I hear people say that, because, like, we have that, some Muslims do that as well,
Yeah.
where, like, they'll be like, oh, God wanted this to happen. Girl, no, he didn't. This was your thing. No, he did not. Like, why would
Yeah.
something bad to happen? Why would you say that?
Yep. And that's the thing too, is that you said it perfectly. Like you're making God look bad. And that's a lot of questions that start to lead people to leave the church in the first place because they're like, why would God allow this? Why would
Exactly.
God want that? Like when they don't realize that their actions that they think are protecting them are causing some of their members to be self-aware that something isn't right here. Something is wrong.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why I don't judge anyone that leaves any religion.
Yeah.
Because I know that, like, I see a lot of ex-Muslims get a lot of hate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, girl, I'm not gonna lie, if I didn't look into it myself, hearing the shit that you guys say, I probably would have left too. Like,
Yeah.
the way that the bullshit that they spew all the time, I'm like, bro, do you hear yourself? Like,
hmm
it's no wonder that these people left.
Yep. Yep. And it's so fascinating because you were saying that, that happens in the Muslim community as well.
Hmm.
Mormons think they're the only ones where it's like, I'm being persecuted. The ex-Mormon, we're the only ones being attacked by, and they're not being attacked, first off, but they're every religion, every community, everyone has that because everything is flawed. The only perfect thing is God.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I didn't mention. I'm not religious right now, but sometimes I do have that relationship with him. I
Hmm.
do feel like there is a creator, or not a creator. I do feel like there is a universal being and
Hmm.
that I can interact with him and talk with him. But
Hmm.
it's funny that, you say that because again, Mormons feel like they're not the only ones, babe. Everyone has issues. Everyone's
Yeah.
got problems going on.
Yeah. And I think every community, like, I'm sure that, like, the Jewish community and, like, the Orthodox community, probably go through the same thing. Like when
Hmm.
people leave, they probably get attacked a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thoughts on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives? That was a fascinating show. I won't lie.
You watched the whole thing, didn't you?
I did. I was fixating hardcore.
Oh my goodness. It's so funny because, and I had posted a TikTok about this
Mm-hmm.
because I have an interesting perspective in the fact that I have been in the Utah Mormon culture and the non-Utah Mormon culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also as someone who doesn't look like a Mormon when they were Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating watching that show because they there's fakeness and then there's realness. The
Mm-hmm.
fakeness in part to me comes from the idea that like they seem like they have their lives put together. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like they have nice houses, they have nice clothes, they look all a certain way. Um and that's just due to the culture that is in Utah. There was a question, do they all look the same? Utah Mormons all look the same. Utah Mormons all look the same because in Utah there's a standard of beauty here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the cosmetology field is so saturated here. It's absolutely insane. Like lashes, nails, hair, extensions. They do it all here. Tanning. Oh my goodness. There's so much tanning. And sometimes not even that good. Like if we're being real, sometimes it's awful. Botox. Like here, if you don't look like you have money or if you don't look beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
you don't seem as accepted. Um, in the hierarchy, that is, because there is a hierarchy here. If you look like that, you're part of the populars. If you dress modestly and look like what you would think a Mormon should look like, you're
Mm-hmm.
not that popular, if we're being honest. It's
Oh.
those who have the beauty standard, who have the rich things,
Mm-hmm.
who sometimes, wear tight dresses and short skirts. They're the popular Mormons here. That's the hierarchy. And
Mm-hmm.
so that part of me it was so hard to watch because I was like, oh, they just look like the girls who would bully me in church, who would ignore me in church. But the realness, Jen's husband, and I'm touching on that because if for those who haven't seen the show, spoiler alert, but Jen's husband is very controlling.
Mm-hmm.
She goes on a trip with the girls to Vegas, and the girl who hosted it didn't tell him they were going to a strip club. He was so mad, which he was gambling at the same time. And if we're talking about church doctrine, gambling is not allowed. You are not allowed to gamble. Granted, strip clubs are probably not allowed either, but it was the hypocrisy that her husband was gambling and
Yeah.
getting mad at her for going to a strip club unknowingly. She didn't know she was
Yeah.
going to a strip club. And he's like saying she's a terrible wife, threatening to divorce her, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show that a lot of men in the church think that they can do whatever and there's no consequence, but that
Mm-hmm.
the women have to follow because the men have the power of God. And so that to me, that part was reality. That happens with a lot of husbands in the church of how controlling. And also when it came to the stigma of sex. One of the girls was talking about how she didn't know about posting a picture with a vibrator, which I think she said like 20 grand or 100,000 or something like that. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
would post a picture in lingerie for 100,000. Are you kidding me? And she's like, I can't I was like, girl,
I know she was
um,
like debating it, like discussing it with her mom at her girl.
yeah. And I was like, for a 20,000, even for 5,000, I would do it. Um, but that is such a stigma in the church is that um they don't talk about sex, they don't talk about their bodies. It's taboo. And so you get married, right? And you don't even know what parts of your vagina are what. You're getting married and you have sex. And imagine just being a woman who if the with women, um, it's harder to orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
And so just imagine that you think something's wrong with you because you can't perform for the man like you should be.
Yeah.
Like that is such a stigma that's real. And it's funny because I'm so glad they touched on these parts because otherwise I probably would have been sick of the show. I would have been like, these women are just, you know. But them
Mhm.
touching on that brought something that I think is important to show is that
Yeah.
they there is stuff in the church that is still happening even when
Mhm.
they try to cover it up. A lot of men are like Jen's husband. A lot of them. I dated someone like that. Like it's and it's just normalized. Like because they give men so much power. Men are
Yeah.
the only ones who can hold the priesthood, which the priesthood is you having the power of God in you. Only men can do that. In one of the covenants in the temple, you get married, you get sealed for eternity. Men can be sealed to more than one wife, but a woman can only be sealed to one man. So, for example, my stepdad is sealed to his ex wife. And if he wanted to, he could be sealed to my mom. But my mom is sealed to my dad. So she cannot be sealed to Jacob, my stepdad. So she
Oh.
would have to break that sealing with my dad to be sealed to Jacob. But Jacob does not have to be unsealed from anyone.
Wait, so if you're sealed to a man, but then you get divorced or whatever, can you get remarried?
Yes, you can get remarried, but you can't get sealed again until you break that sealing.
How fascinating.
Yeah.
What
And
is
that's a wait, what were you saying? Sorry.
no, you're fine. I'm just like thinking about this because I've never heard this before. Like,
Mhm.
what does the ceiling signify?
So a sealing, I might catch a lot of flack for this because this is like their most ultimate sacred covenant is the endowment, which is when you get your garments, and then the sealing. So a sealing is basically a ritual. It's ritualistic. That's what it is. It's a ritual where you and your husband make a covenant with God that you will be faithful for time and eternity because Mormons are very much eternal, like
Hmm.
past this life into other lives,
Yeah.
into the heaven.
Yeah.
And so for them, it's like marriage, but you're bringing eternity into it. So they
Hmm.
do a ritual, and it involves a lot of handshakes, a lot of secret words. It's a lot, a different outfit. And so it's
Wait, you've
basically
done it before, right?
yes, yes. I was sealed to Hunter in the Dallas, Texas temple. Um, and if I'm being honest, that in my endowment, I remember being so freaked out, like because it's I don't know if you've ever, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen it because it's definitely like a different movie. It's called Hereditary. Um, or not Hereditary, sorry. Oh my gosh, now I can't even think of the movie. But just imagine like you see those movies where they're doing a ritual around a fire and everyone's like dancing and then it becomes like kind of crazy and things like that. Like
Like
it
that.
kind of it gives that vibe. Like you're watching these instructors showing you and your parents do something and there's to preface to say there's no gore, there's no sex, there's nothing like that. But it's just so real ritualistic feeling that you get tingles. And they make you feel like those tingles are God. But those tingles are really just you being like, this isn't normal. This just
Mm.
something's going on. And so the sealing is basically like it just their version of marriage, but it surpasses to when you die. When you die, you will be with your family forever. To them, a marriage, like in the normal sense, where you get married like in a chapel or married somewhere else, with a um ordainer. I don't remember their name, when they, do the marriage. To them, that's mundane. That's just in this life. To them, the sealing is for eternal life.
I have so many questions. Okay. I've I've heard like in high school that like Mormon weddings, like you're wearing your garment and like nothing else and just like staring at each other and like it's just like this like I don't know like the ordainer or whatever and it's just like I don't know I've heard that it's like dark and it's like uncomfortable and like what is that about? Like why are you what are garments? Like why I know that's a question later on,
Mhm.
but like
No, you're
what are
good.
garments? Like do people actually wear them? I've never seen one in my life. Like what's going on?
So, so the first part, the sealing part. So it's funny because when I got endowed, I think I was 19, so like 6 years ago. When I got endowed and we went through the sealing and everything, we were not just in garments. There is a sacred temple outfit, which
Hmm.
if you wanted to Google, you could Google it and find it. And it's basically just a white, all white, and then there's green parts to it. There's a green apron, a hat. It's like a weird hat thing. And it's all very modest, long,
Hmm.
and it that signifies basically the simplicity of back with Adam and Eve. There's greenery and all that. And so that's how they do it now. But it's funny because, and this is something I didn't know when I was Mormon, but back then, like I say back then, like a long time ago, but I guess 1990s is a long time ago. But I have met members and ex-members who back then, when they went through the ordinances, they wore nothing but a sheet that was open on the sides. Yeah. And imagine just standing there in nothing but a sheet.
I'd
And you
be
come,
so uncomfortable.
yes, yes. And so that did happen. So that did happen. They don't do that anymore, but that did happen back then. That's how they used to do it. And as far as garments, so garments are basically just long underwear. And people call it magic underwear. And that's because to the LDS to members, does it signifies that godly promise, so to them it's like very important. Mormons are supposed to wear them. So when I was a member, you were told to wear them all the time except for swimming, and exercising was maybe iffy, like, but you wore them all the time. You wore them to sleep, you wore them under everything and anything. Um, but the reason that people question if people wear garments is because it's a whole modesty thing. The garments are, in a way, they go to your knees and then their sleeves. So, and they go like to here. So you can't wear anything low cut, you can't wear tank tops, you can't wear anything above the knee. And so, as we've gone further along into the years, a lot of people have started to wear things that are lower cut, things that are, and I have nothing against modesty. My view of modesty is because I was raised with modesty being as in you're covering yourself because you're responsible for the actions of a man if he does something against you. So
Hmm.
that's why for me personally, modesty is hard for me because
Hmm.
I was taught that, oh, I have to cover my butt because if a guy looks at my butt, that's my fault.
Yeah.
Like that's my view of modesty. But I do respect other people for wanting to be modest.
Mm.
So to Mormons, we're supposed to be modest, but people will hike their garments up, they'll like roll them, they'll like tuck them. And so it's become a lot more lax now where, in Secret Life Mormon Wives, some of them are Mormon, they don't wear their garments. And it's funny because that would have been such taboo for me. And
Hmm.
now it's almost normalized. They just actually came out with new garments that their sleeves are tinier. So you can wear something more up. And they have, and a loophole that Mormons found is that if you're like tall and you get the petite garments, they hike up higher, which I had to wear petite because I'm short. I'm like 5'2". So, these women are buying out the 5'2", and I'm like, or the petite, and I'm like, hey, I need that. I actually
Mm.
need that. And so garments are a real thing. And the thing is Mormons members get, if like I said, if you looked on the internet, you could see garments. But members get really mad because to them that's a sacred thing. Like for example, this is another thing people don't know. Garments have symbols on them. So there's threading, special threading, like a symbol on the chest. I think it's on the left side, and there's one line of thread on the thigh. And those are special symbols. I could not tell you, I don't remember what they are, but when you get rid of garments, because eventually they'll wear out, you can't just throw them away. You're instructed to tear them apart, to cut them, rip them, so the symbols are unrecognizable before you throw them out.
Why?
Because to them, the keys to getting into heaven, you have to go through these, like, the endowment, the sealings, you have to do this stuff. And to them, that's a commitment. So if they're giving this, even if a normal person doesn't even know what it means, if they're giving out this free knowledge,
Hmm.
everyone's going to be able to. So to them, it's like again is ritualistic. Like they have to be a part of us to be able to know what it means. So
Uh,
that's why. Yeah.
mhm. That is fascinating. I am learning so much. Yeah, because like I would see them and like people, even if you go on like their TikToks, like you look at the comments, people are like, "Where are your garments? Where are your garments?" And
Hmm.
I'm like, "Yeah, girl, because I don't see anything. Like, what am I looking for?"
Yeah, it's because again, it's you're supposed to wear them all the time, but now it's like, and some part of me has that resentment because it's like I would have like everything is so lax now. All
Mm.
these Utah Mormons are getting tiny tattoos and getting like multiple piercings on their ears. I have these big bold tattoos and like I was shunned for them here. Like it's fascinating because another thing with the church is they go with the public. They go with the worldly view. They say don't be a worldly things, but if you notice when things change throughout time,
Mhm.
they also receive revelation and happen to change with the times.
Yeah, I saw someone posted a video about how like the Mormon church supports Nara Smith, even though she dresses the way she does what she does, like, but they support her because like it's good publicity.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
they're just like okay with her doing that.
yeah. That's the thing is like her and so yeah, Nara Smith and Lucky Blue Smith, which Nara Smith is a convert. Lucky
Hmm.
Blue Smith was raised in the church. Um, and it's funny because a lot of times they don't dress modestly and stuff like that, but the church doesn't say anything because again, they give them good publicity. They're well kept Mormons. They're very rich looking Mormons. They're very um soft spoken Mormons. And to be honest, with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I'm very shocked that some of them haven't been excommunicated yet. I wouldn't be surprised if the seasons continue that they will be excommunicated, which excommunicated just means that your records are forcibly removed. And if you ever wanted to be a member again, you have to go through the whole process again. Um, and so, and that's the interesting thing because if you're openly having discourse with the church, but you aren't necessarily like good publicity. Like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, like all these women look a certain way. Like they seem rich, they seem nice. Nothing has been done against them. But um, so if for those who are interested in Mormon stuff, there's also something called Mormon Stories and Girls Camp podcast. Those are like where I get most of my sources from. But they in Mormon Stories, there was a therapist. She's a sex ed therapist.
Hmm.
She was excommunicated because she was teaching knowledge about and destigmatizing the shame surrounding it. And
Hmm.
she wanted to be a member still, and they excommunicated her. Same with Nemo the Mormon. He would have healthy discourse about, oh, like the church said this, like, what should we interpret by it? They just excommunicated him. And he showed up in a white suit to signify the day that he wore a white suit for his baptism. And they excommunicated him.
That's insanity to me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we don't have that. We don't believe
Oh,
that,
really?
yeah, no one can determine whether you're Muslim or not except God.
See, I wish the church, because that's just so much power for the church to have. And that was
Mhm.
something you were threatened with. Like, oh, if you do this, it's going to lead to that, which will lead to excommunication. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a member in the church's whole your whole life and you are threatened to be excommunicated, it's ripping away your whole identity.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
and that's I can imagine like that must be really difficult. 'Cause I mean like for us like culturally you might be shunned, but like that'll just be people that know you. Like it's not gonna or
yeah,
people on the internet like 'cause we don't like even people on the internet will be like, "Oh, like if you're doing that, you're not Muslim. You're not allowed to say that." Like you
yeah.
literally will get sinned for saying that.
And that's so there's so let oh my gosh, I just said the same thing like that. There's much less shame with that because it's like that that bond will be unbreakable between you and God. But it's like in the church, it's almost like they want to break that, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like they
I will say
want
that
to break it.
yeah. The only thing with us is that our book is in Arabic. And
Oh,
So if you don't speak Arabic, like I will say I was privileged in the sense that I grew up more Muslim than most of my peers.
Hmm.
I come from a more practicing family than most, but I still grew up hearing some things and I couldn't verify if it was true or not.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you gonna verify? I don't speak Arabic.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't even know that like you can't say that. Like it took for me finding it in English and reading it myself before I was
Hmm.
like, oh, a lot of these things are wrong and everything makes sense now.
It's a good thing I read my notes because I gotta fact check myself. I said 1870 for Joseph Smith. It was 1830.
You know
So
what? Even though you said 1870, I was impressed that you knew it.
it was
Because I wouldn't have.
1830. I was confusing it with 1970, which is when, because I know they asked about people of color, that's when all of that came into play. So that's why I was like confusing the two numbers.
Okay, well, before we get into the other questions that everyone asked, I did remember one more thing. Sorry, if I look down, it's because I'm like looking at my notes because I have
You're
all my
good.
questions. Um, BYU, I have heard that they charge a higher tuition to non-Mormons.
Yes. You are
How is that
correct.
allowed?
So, God, this goes into like the whole thing with the church and their expenses and their tax cuts and their schooling. So members pay something called tithing, which is 10% of your income.
Mm,
Um, and you are supposed to pay 10% of any income you receive. So every paycheck, if you get 1,600, you're supposed to pay $160 to the church.
yeah.
Um, and this tithing is supposed to go to like, I don't know, like temples and stuff. I don't know. I don't know. We always just paid it. I didn't ask. My parents
Mm,
probably know. Because there's something called fasting and there's tithing. But with BYU, so what I was told, the reasoning behind us having cheaper tuition is because we pay tithing and we're members and we pay tithing. They charge us significantly less amount. So for example, when I went to BYUI, which is there's three BYUs. There's one in
mm.
Utah, one in Idaho, and one in Hawaii because,
Oh,
colonization.
wow.
Yeah. So they have one in Hawaii and they have one in Idaho and they have one in Utah. I went to the one in Idaho because the acceptance rate is like 70 something percent. And I didn't graduate seminary, which is 4 years throughout high school of you taking classes, and each year you study a different part of a book that the Mormons have. So Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Old Testament, New Testament of the Bible. It's a lot. If you graduate it, you're most likely to get into BYU, the main one. If you don't, I go to BYUI because I didn't graduate. I paid, I think, 700 for one semester, and it was like over 10 credits. 700 for one semester.
That's a really good price.
Yeah.
But also, I'm confused about the 4 years of studying a book. Was that before college? Like during
So
high school?
yes. So in Utah, they implement it into high school. So you can actually add seminary as a class in high school because there's a church building on like every block here. So they have church buildings next to the schools, and kids will go to seminary during school. But for those who are not fortunate enough to live in Utah, and I say fortunate, it's not really that fortunate, but regarding this instance,
Mm.
so in Texas, we had seminary at 6 a.m. in the morning. So every single day for 4 years of high school, you go to the church at 6 a.m. to learn about one of the books. And you graduate by passing the exams and attendance. So,
Wait, I totally remember this Mormon kid in high school saying that he used to go to this thing before school.
seminary, yeah, yeah.
That's
All of high school, your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year, and your senior year.
wow. So what if you don't
Yeah.
want to go to BYU? Like you don't have to do that?
Yeah, but there's that shameful stigma that if you don't go, and so, for example, I was forced to go, but then because I was mentally ill and went to so many hospitals, I missed so much that I just didn't graduate.
Hmm.
And my younger sister doesn't go to seminary. She like, or she didn't in Texas, so she just doesn't go. But you have higher chances of getting, because you also need a bishop recommendation to get into BYU. which means
Mhm.
your bishop evaluates like your integrity, your history, like, are you a faithful member? Because BYU is very religious. Like even their classes, they teach you about marriage and covenants. Like in college, you're learning these. And on top of that too, um, all of your classes have some prayer in it. Um, I was gonna say something, completely forgot. It was something so crazy too. That was part of the schooling. Well, now I can't remember it, but yeah,
Dang,
there's
if
a
you
lot of.
remember it, definitely say it because
I know.
I
I'm
am
like,
so fascinated by all of this.
there's literally such a religious aspect of going to school or going to. Oh, that's what it was. It's so far in. They have something called the honor code system, which is
Hmm.
if you see your roommate doing something, like if they're out past like 10 p.m., if they have a boy or girl over, the opposite sex, if they're making out or kissing someone who is of the same sex, you can report it and get them in trouble. Like it's basically, it sounds negative saying it like this, but it has harmed a lot of my friends. It's a snitch system.
Hmm.
You get rewarded for snitching.
What do you get?
Um, it's reward in the sense where it's like it's ingrained in your brain where it's like these things are wrong, and if you report it, it's you are doing something good for them because it's all about
Mm.
your
So it's just like some
your
validation.
it's validation that like, oh my gosh, I saw this, I know it's wrong. If I tell them, God will be proud of me.
Hmm.
And I had a friend, he attended BYU,
Hmm.
and um he that happened to him a bit because he he was not like the other kid or the other students there. He's out now, so but he was gay, and
Hmm.
he he it harmed him quite a bit. And so that's another thing is that was one of the hard parts about going to school was just like you're constantly worrying that if you're not doing everything right, someone's gonna tell on you.
Yeah, that's hard. That's really
Yeah.
hard to live with. And we have that as well, where like, I don't know, the only validation they get is snitching to your mom, but and then you get in trouble because like for us it's like what will people say? What will people think?
Yeah.
But it's like culturally that matters, but religiously it's like what I do is between me and God. It's not
Hmm.
between the whole community. And
Exactly.
I don't know why these people are so invested because we're not supposed to be acting like that
Yeah.
religiously.
Exactly. And I like that a lot. Like exactly what you said. Like it's between me and God. No one else should be
Hmm.
involved.
Yeah, exactly. That's also why like I have this disagreement a lot with other Muslims is like I don't if I see someone that I know is sinning, like I know you're sinning, I'm not going to say anything
Yeah.
because it we are taught to like advise, but I'm going to be honest, like I feel like everyone that sins knows what they're doing
Yeah.
and they know that it's probably wrong. And why do I need to add on to that? Why do I need to
Exactly.
give them the shame, the guilt that I know the rest of the community is already doing? So I just am gonna not care.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think I wish there was a lot of perspective that people had. And I
Mm,
think that a lot empathy comes a lot into play with that.
mm,
Because it's like you already know they're suffering. Like,
mm.
because when you're religious and you're brought up in that, you already have that guilt
Yeah,
as soon as you sin, you already have that guilt. So
yeah,
why add on to it? Why add on to it when they're already suffering the consequences of that sin?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why other people don't say it that way. But all right, let's get into the questions. So, do Mormons do active outreach or is it a you are or you aren't scenario? I didn't really understand this question. I worded it exactly how they wrote it. I
Yeah.
think what they're talking about are the missions.
Yeah. That's kind of what I garnered from it.
Mm-hmm.
At least the first part. So Mormons are really big into proselyting.
Mm-hmm.
So and I missions is just touch on a really sad part for me of the church. So missionaries, it's basically a young adult with men as soon as they turn 18, with women, I
Mm,
think it's 19 now. It used to be like 20 or 21. I think it's 19 now.
mm, mm,
Women go on an 18-month mission, men go on 2 years, and you get sent to either a different part of the world, like a different country, or you go to a different state
mm,
and you proselyte for that whole time. Um, Missions, men are kind of expected. Like,
mm,
it's not, you don't have to, but culturally, if you
mm,
don't serve a mission as a man, you are shunned.
mm.
Women, if you go on a mission, you receive recognition. You're like, oh my gosh, she's amazing because she went on a mission. Because they don't
Yeah.
have to. Technically, both don't have to, but for the women, it's less.
Yeah.
And for me, so my husband served a mission. He was
Mm-hmm.
sent to Trinidad and Guyana, which is in the Caribbean. Um, and missions can kind of be considered colonialism if you think about it, because
Mm-hmm.
you are sending primarily white young adults to different countries to proselyte, but also missionaries do acts of service. They help their neighbors. It's kind of like sending a little gift, if you will, that
Mm-hmm.
is perfectly wrapped and nice, and you open it, it's a nice surprise, and it kind of suckers you in because these kids,
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're this church, they're so committed, they're serving this mission, like this is a good thing. Um, my husband went on his mission. He was he would say he wanted to go at the time, but
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't an option. His dad wouldn't have let him otherwise. He was about to finish pilot school, almost done, like a month away, and then his
Mm-hmm.
dad made him go on a mission, which with pilot school, if you don't complete it, you have to start over. So he went on his mission. Um, he got tapeworm, his knee tore again. He still stayed on his mission because if you leave early, there's a stigma that you failed because you left your mission early. And there's a lot of mental health aspects that come into play with it. And so Hunter had left on his mission, had all this happening, didn't leave because he knew that his dad would be ashamed if he did.
Mm-hmm.
His dad, before he left, was this large, plump sounds weird to say, but he was just a large, plump man, just an older man. He
Mm-hmm.
came home and his dad was so thin, so
Oh.
thin. And he was like, Dad, like, what's going on? He's like, well, I didn't want to tell you on your mission because I didn't want you to come home. I have cancer.
Oh.
His dad, and this is where the stigma comes in. His dad had cancer when he lived on his mission. Didn't want to tell Hunter because he didn't want Hunter to come home.
Mm.
Imagine if his father had passed away when he was on his mission.
Yeah.
That there are people who won't come home if someone passes away because it's such a thing where it's like you have to stay faithful on your mission. On your
Mm-hmm.
mission, you're not allowed to listen to music. You're supposed to read scriptures. You pray before, after, all the time. You don't read anything that isn't non-religious. You wear your missionary outfits all the time, except for on Mondays, which are called P days, where you can wear, gym clothes, but modest gym clothes. You're isolated, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you're telling yourself you're doing this for God. I'm sacrificing everything else, which another thing. So the church is multi-billion company. I say company, they're a multi-billion church. Families pay for their kids to go on their missions. The church does not fund the mission.
Oh.
Families pay for their children to go on missions monthly.
Honestly, you saying company sounds really accurate to me because like earlier when we were talking about like image
Hmm.
and publicity, I was like, this is giving PR firm. Like,
Yes. Their PR, a lot of these celebrities should really get on what Mormons are getting for their PR
mhm,
because it's just a level of untouchability. Like, if you think about it, the church has enough money, they could help all of the homeless in Utah, not even just Utah, in multiple states. Because in Salt Lake City, the homeless community is huge there, but
mhm,
nothing. And like I said, these members are paying for their kids. You can be struggling as a member and you still will pay. and you can have other people pay. Like there'll be things where like they set up a mission fund and other people can fund
Mm,
towards
like a
it.
scholarship type thing.
Yes. But
Hmm.
the fact that the church can't even pay for these missions that they're expecting their members to go on,
Yeah, I had
it's
thought that they were paid for, to be honest.
no,
I'm a little baffled.
no, no. I mean, they'll provide like a car sometimes and like a bike, but like the majority, like their monthly stipend is paid by the families. Like my sister, my parents are preparing to pay for my sister when she goes to Alabama for her mission.
Hmm.
They did the same thing for when my sister went to Mexico. And that's another thing is they go to all different like they have and they go to a place first called the MTC, which is the Missionary Training Center. They have
Hmm.
one in Salt Lake City. I think they have another one in the US, but I'm not sure. It could just be the one. They have one in South America. I'm pretty sure they also have one, is it Europe? Somewhere over on the
Hmm.
other side of the ocean. They have another
Hmm.
one as well. You go there first, you learn whatever language you need to learn, or if you're English speaking, you train and then you go out on your mission. And it's funny because every mission is different. Some missions they will only send men on, they won't send women because women have been harassed. And if you there are some absolute horror stories from missionaries. And it's so sad because imagine you're just this white kid growing up in Utah and it's all you've ever known, surrounded by white people, surrounded by what is considered safe to them,
Hmm.
because in Texas, I was surrounded by all different types of diversity. I didn't think I was unsafe, but to them, that would be unsafe because they're not
Hmm.
used to that. And you get sent to like Ecuador in South America.
Hmm.
Like that is a culture shock. Like that's a huge just shock to them. And so it creates a lot of mental health issues. A lot of missionaries come back and their mental health is just through the tank. And some countries they won't send missionaries to, like obviously North Korea. And then in Russia, actually, if they send missionaries there, they can only proselyte in churches and by invitation. So they can't even proselyte home to home because that's basically what they do. Like you'll see signs
Hmm.
where it says no soliciting. To them, they don't consider it soliciting, so they'll still knock. So some people here actually put no missionaries, no soliciting, like no religion, because they
Hmm.
are persistent. And like if I see a missionary, like, I'll offer them water, I'll offer them food, like because it's so isolating also not being with your family for that long. You
Yeah.
only get it used to be that you only got to talk to them like once a month. I think now they change it to like weekly or something, and they send emails and stuff like that. But that's basically what a mission is. And like I said, if you think about it, it's almost like colonialism because
Yeah.
you're, and that's how the church is primarily grows, is because they're sending these missionaries to other countries. They're helping out these people, and these people are like, "Oh my gosh, this church must be amazing because they're helping me." And then they convert, and they just add to the numbers.
Hmm.
Like one of the families that I grew up with, they also have a like adult missionaries, as in like old
Hmm.
couples who don't have kids
Hmm.
anymore. They can
Hmm.
go on missions. My someone I grew up with, he used to be my bishop. All of their kids are at the house. They just got called to go to Africa to be the medical director in the mission. So they're just this white couple going to Africa, and then another couple also that I knew, their kids are all out of the house. They're going to the Philippines for their mission. Like it's insane the outreach that they have.
Hmm.
It's just crazy. And that's basically what missionaries do. They just go and they proselyte. And some people are results, like some people are born to the church. Like I was born to the church. My
Hmm.
mom was born into the church. My dad was a convert. My dad converted at 16. They taught him in his country in Ecuador, and that's how he became a member.
Hmm.
Was because he was converted.
That's interesting. Like from a
Mhm.
missionary, probably, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a whole culture shock. Imagine having to learn Spanish in like 4 or 5 months and then being sent out into the field. And also, like, a lot of these countries are also third world countries. Like Honduras, where our mom's from, is a third world country. Like,
Hmm.
they go to the bathroom in a hole outside. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't want there to be a negative connotation to it because obviously, like, they have to do what they have to do. And like,
Hmm.
I was raised with the mindset of like, we have to appreciate everything we have because
Yeah.
we didn't have this, like my parents didn't have that growing up. I'm saying it in the sense where it's like I said, imagine you're just this white kid from Utah who probably has a
Hmm.
bidet in their house and you go to this,
Hmm.
like the mental obstacles that you have to go through is crazy.
Yeah, no, I can imagine how that could be hard because like Boxton definitely has like upped its game. So
Hmm.
like they have a lot of like modern stuff now, but like
Yeah.
where a lot of people are from the village. Like a lot of people aren't
Hmm.
from big cities. So like our family that lives there, they're from the village. So
Yeah.
I don't go to visit because I know I can't do that. Like I can't, the
Hmm.
toilet's on the floor. Like it's a hole in the ground. Like I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, like so unless you have family in the city, like you don't really like what's an American kid gonna do there?
Yeah.
So I can
Yeah.
imagine that. Like I can imagine that, especially because it sounds like they're being brainwashed into it in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going there and you're all alone and it's like it's different. And it's not and you know, it's funny because I got a comment the other day where I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm warming up water on a kettle because our hot water pipe has leaked, so we don't have hot."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm warming up water in the kettle like Boxon," and someone was like, "Boxon has hot water." Okay, you're showing your privilege because
Yeah.
where my family's from, they don't have hot water. My mom didn't grow up with hot water. Like she literally said that she warmed it up in the kettle. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. So that just I feel like it's not a degrading thing. I'm not degrading them that oh they don't have
Yeah.
water. It's just like they don't have hot water. Like
They just don't have it. Like,
yeah. And that's
yeah.
okay. It's just a different thing and it's
Hmm.
something that we're not used to.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and the thing is too is like when they go to these countries, even the mental stigma, there isn't a lot of help with it. Like imagine trying to go to your bishop or the mission president and you're like, I'm depressed. Like a lot of the times they will tell you to push through it. They won't send you home. They won't give you resources. They will tell you to push through it. Like it's just it's to them it's like the mission is the ultimate sacrifice. The
Mm-hmm.
ultimate. And you know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with showing like you're willing to sacrifice things for God or that you're willing to do things for God, but like when it gets to the point where it wipes away all of your identity to the point where it's like you don't
Mm-hmm.
even feel like you are worth something,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's time to question whether that's an issue on their part. You know, like
100%.
question like,
Mhm.
is this actually what God wants me to do, or is this what they're telling me has to be done?
Yeah. See, in our religion, we believe that anything that harms your mental health, you shouldn't do. So even
Yeah,
like fasting is technically required. But if you suffer from depression, then you're not supposed to be fasting.
yeah.
And I know that some people say like you shouldn't say suffering from, I don't know, when I'm depressed, I do feel like I'm suffering. So yes, I am suffering from.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think that's another stigma where it's like I think society has come a long way when it comes to mental health, but I
Mm,
still think that's part of that where it's like to them it's not a real thing, it's just your mind. But
mm-hmm.
there is suffering. Like my body has a physical reaction
Hmm.
to when I'm depressed, to when I'm anxious. Like
Yeah.
it's not just mind games. It's the
Mhm.
actual chemistry in my brain
Mm,
reacting and changing, which is causing my body to also react.
yeah, the physical aspects of it too. Yeah, like you said, I think people just think it's mental and
Yeah.
no, like that affects your body. It affects everything.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we already did the why do they look so similar? It's funny because the ones here, I feel like they look pretty similar too.
Yeah. It's you know, it's almost like this is weird to say the Aryan race thing.
Mm-hmm.
Blonde, blue-eyed, and not even just blonde and blue-eyed, but like just the image of what beauty should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just and this is also a sad thing, but like, Utah is not diverse at all. And some of the
Yeah.
few black people that are members, and I'm not saying I can't speak. I am not a black person, I am
Mm,
a white Hispanic. But you can see how they try to assimilate too, because that's the only way they'll feel welcome.
mm,
And that's so heartbreaking to me because it's like if you feel beautiful that way, okay, that's awesome, that's amazing. But if you also feel like you're suppressing something, you
mm,
shouldn't have to feel that way. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to suppress something to fit in with these people who have an idea of beauty.
mm,
Beauty, it doesn't come in one form. It comes in so many different forms.
yeah,
And, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. And I
yeah,
think that's the hard part of Utah. I mean, and I think you can see that in The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives with Layla.
yeah,
You know, she looks like everyone else. And
uh,
again, like if you feel beautiful that way, that's amazing. But if you feel like you're suppressing something, that's not authentic. That's not
mhm.
you. Like you shouldn't have to feel like you have to suppress something to fit in.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw her TikTok where everyone was like, try like box braids instead, and she was
Mhm.
like, I love both sides of my culture, but this is how I feel beautiful. And like that's fair, but like I was just sitting there like you don't even want to try them. Like
Yeah.
a whole part of you and you don't even want to like see what it would look like on you.
Yeah.
Like you're not even willing to give it a try.
And I think that comes with the part where you suppress your identity as a person. Because,
Hmm.
like, for me, like I said earlier, when I was a member, I felt like I was suppressing so much of my authentic self just to
Hmm.
feel accepted. And, we've seen what the idea of acceptance is to Mormons, especially in Utah. You know, again, their idea of beauty is such a specific way. And
Yeah.
it makes me sad because like there are so many other ways and so many different things that we consider beautiful, but
Hmm.
because the hierarchy has determined that's beautiful, everyone else feels like they have to catch up. I've caught myself in that. I've caught myself in like, oh my gosh, like I should have a house by now. All these 20-year-olds are buying houses already. Oh my gosh, they're all doing nails. Oh my gosh, they have their nails done. This girl is walking around with the Stanley, which fuck Stanley
Hmm.
anyways. Like
Period.
they're, it's just so sad because then all these people are making themselves go broke to fit in
Hmm.
with everyone else.
Yeah, but I have noticed the ones here at least, they're all rich as hell.
Yeah. Old money. I mean, have you heard of the ballerina farm?
Yes, are they Mormon?
They're Mormon. His dad is one of the biggest people in JetBlue for the airline JetBlue. Like they it's when it comes to colonialism, all these old members and old families come from money because they came, they took the land, they founded these things, and they actually did a study. They did this thing. Utah is one of the best states and biggest states when it comes to founding businesses, finding companies,
Mm,
because there's something about all this old money and all these ideas that people just find these companies and build them, even with MLMs, which, multi-level marketing, which are
mm,
scams,
mm-hmm,
huge here in Utah. Huge. Because it's a herd mentality and there's always these top dogs and they always come from old money. They always come from the long line of lineage of
mm-hmm,
the colonists that were here, the colonizers that were here. Like
mm-hmm.
it's crazy.
Is there like cousin marriages? Because, and I ask this because like if the money comes from like old money, like I'm just wondering how many of them actually come from these original like colonizers.
So a, there actually a lot of them, like it's kind of like, so there's this app called Ancestry, which
Mm-hmm,
is, family history, family trees. You can find there's a thing on Ancestry where you can find who around you who's logged in Ancestry is related to you. And it's almost like a game. Like people find like how far removed cousins they are, what
mm-hmm,
prophet they share lineage with. It's they do that here. or even not just here in like the church in general. I did it in Texas, which I'm not. I'm Hispanic, so I didn't have a lot of shared lineage with a lot of these
Mm.
people. But like, they do that here, where they're like, oh my gosh, you're also related to Spencer W. Kimball. Oh my gosh, you're also related to Brigham Young. Oh my gosh, you're related. Like a lot of them are related to the original Joseph Smith. Like it's crazy.
That is crazy. And the fact that they know that is crazy. Because now that you mention that, like I have gone on like I'll Google like how to find like my ancestry like data or
Mhm.
whatever. And like the website will be like from the Latter-day Saints and I'm like fascinating.
They are very into family history. One of my friends actually went to the UK because they have an ancestry, family history, like a
Hmm.
lot of archives there. The archives there are huge. So she actually went on an internship there. My friend went on an internship there because she works for ancestry and family history. She went on an internship there to study that. They're very big into lineage here because again, that comes into the play where they recognize the past selves and they also
Hmm.
look into the future and eternal life. Completing your family tree is like, oh my gosh, like it's like a goal, like it's like a game. It's like, oh my gosh, I won at something. Like completing the family tree, and they'll complete the family tree, they'll find these names and they'll baptize them. It's a whole cycle. It's a whole cycle.
I had a teacher in undergrad, a psych teacher, who was Mormon, and he made us do a family tree for an assignment. He used to talk shit on cousin marriages all the time. Like all the time. And it bothered me so bad because like it's very common in my culture, and so I just don't like the judgment. So I
Yeah.
was just like, because I personally don't support it, and I have my own reasons being,
Yeah.
coming from a family that has a lot of that. I just don't support it for my own reasons.
Yeah.
But I don't like when other people judge it because they don't understand the complexities of the culture and the reasoning.
Hmm.
But like the fact that he made us do a family tree is just so freaking hilarious. I also remember there was this girl in my class that was pregnant and she had asked all of the teachers like, "Can I go on Zoom for the next 2 weeks? Because like I'm gonna go give birth." And he was the only one that said no because he doesn't believe that women should be in school
Yeah.
when they have kids. Like he believed that she should be at home with her child.
And that is this isn't part of the questions, but to touch on that, that is a founding um doctrine in the church. There's something
Mm-hmm.
called a family to the proclamation of the world,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And it basically states that a man's responsibility is to work and provide. A woman's responsibility is to be a mother and a wife and um a homemaker. That is their responsibility. And we've come a long way, not just in Mormonism, but in society, with women and
Mm-hmm.
feminism,
Yeah.
women feeling empowered to work and to provide.
Mm-hmm.
But that is definitely a stigma in the church where women are supposed to be at home taking care of the kids, cooking,
Yeah.
cleaning. They're not the ones that are supposed to provide. And that rhetoric is harmful. And the reason I say that, so we've talked about mental health. We're talking about this now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I briefly mentioned my dad earlier. My dad passed away in 2009, of suicide. And he, not only was he Hispanic, but he was a member. And being Hispanic has its own things
Mm-hmm.
because emotions, mental health is a stigma in there as well. Men
Yeah.
aren't supposed to cry. Men are supposed to work and work and work. Emotions aren't talked about. You're supposed to be strong. And then bring in the Mormonism aspect of it, where men are supposed to be the provider.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Up to right before my dad passed away, my dad got a work injury, which
Mm-hmm.
it damaged his back a lot. He could not work, which
Mm-hmm.
led to my mom working overnights. My dad felt so guilty. And it's kind of hard talking about this because I brought it up briefly with my sisters who are still members, and my dad loved the church. He loved
Mm-hmm.
it. But part of me wonders if my dad had not been a member, would he have felt as much shame as he did before what he did? Would he have felt worthy enough to stay as, because that was one thing. He felt like he was failing as a dad, as a father, as a
Yeah.
husband because
Yeah.
he could not work. That's so damaging.
Yeah.
Like the fact that that and still to this day we have that stigma is just it's crazy to me. It's so crazy to me because
Mhm.
I'm after that happened, my mom worked her butt off. She's went to school. She's still in school. You know, she has her master's, she has her bachelor's, she's getting her certification in psychology. Like she the one thing she always told me is that we do not need a man. You do not need a man. So I developed a work ethic where I will work and work and work. For example, Hunter works full time. He's gone all day, every day. But I also work. I work overnights and I go to school and I have the kids
Mhm.
because I will be damned if I have to, if I have what happened to my mom happen where I lose my spouse, where I
Mhm.
cannot survive on my own. I will
Yeah.
be damned if I have to do that.
Mhm.
And so I wish that was something that wasn't still part of the church. And, you know, Jen's husband is a prime example of that, where it's like he's the
Absolutely.
alpha male. Like he's
Mhm.
the one who does everything. Jen should be the little housewife. Like
Mhm.
we're not in that anymore. We shouldn't be in
Yeah.
that anymore. You know, we are women are capable of so many things and our brains work in a way where it's like it's almost better suited than men's are. Because
Mhm.
I've heard something where it's like men compartmentalize their ideas and women follow tangents. But you know what
Mhm.
happens when you follow tangents? You get new ideas, you get new info. Your brain is always moving, always working.
Mhm.
Imagine how powerful that is in so many different jobs and so many different things. Like that's just women are so powerful. I mean, and
Yeah.
I wish
Um,
men felt comfortable enough to where they would let a woman provide.
yeah. And it's funny because Jen makes the money in the house.
Exactly.
And he still is like alpha male, even though he's not the
Hmm.
breadwinner and like
Hmm.
he feels the need to control like what she does and what she does with
Yeah.
the money. And I mean, what you wonder about your dad, I feel like is such a fair question to wonder because the double stigma, like, I mean, we hear because like, working in mental health in the past, like I know that we did learn about the statistics because, California is largely filled with Hispanic and Latino people. So it's like you learn these statistics and already they have such high like suicide rates and
Hmm.
mental health and add the stigma of Mormonism on top of that, like especially because it does sound like a very intense community. Like
Yeah.
it's a fair thing to wonder.
Yeah. And it made my sisters angry because they saw the intent that it was like the church was the reason he passed away. I'm not saying that. I am
Hmm.
not saying it is the reason. All I am saying is that if that wasn't brought into it, how much of his mind or his emotions would be different.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's a fair thing to wonder.
I guess we'll never know. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's just that's always something that has hit me. And I think that also might have been a catalyst for why I left was the
Hmm.
mental health portion of it because I always wondered that like if if this church can cause someone's mind to change that much, imagine how different it would be if they had never been introduced to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine how much of their identity would be preserved.
Yeah, it'd be like a completely different life.
Hmm.
Oh, there was something else I was gonna say and I forgot it. Oh yeah, the asking those types of questions portion. Like it sounds like, because from what you mentioned earlier, like you're not allowed to ask those questions.
It's almost shameful that you if you have to ask those questions. Like if you have doubt, is that going to lead you to sinning? Like
Mm,
they they're always taught that when you start questioning, you need to pray about it, you need to seek the scriptures, and you need to talk with your bishop. But the thing is when you talk to them, they don't really give you a straight answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's always theoretical. It's always imaginative. There's no concrete answer. Like if you were to ask, why did they start polygamy? Why did they stop polygamy? God told them to. God told them to. But like you want to know like the details behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a figurative answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the church, it's like if you start questioning, to them it's a road to despair or road to leaving the church, which leads to like the end of your salvation. And so when you even start questioning, that
Mm-hmm.
anxiety comes in that you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like something's wrong with me, something's wrong with
Yeah.
me. When as humans, doubting is such a normal thing. It's what
Mm-hmm.
causes us to be safe. If
Yeah.
I'm going across the street and I feel like a car's gonna come, like, I feel like I shouldn't cross, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's human nature to doubt, but they've
Yeah.
perfected it to the point where it's like, if they can get their members not to doubt, they can keep them. It's the
Mm-hmm.
ultimate manipulation, if you will.
I hate to say it, but it sounds like a cult.
And that is the thing. They hate it when that's brought up. But if you look at the psychology behind the church, the
Mm-hmm.
mannerisms, it is similar to a cult. And they'll say, well,
Mm-hmm.
you have free agency. And I will say again, do you actually have agency if everything surrounding you is Mormon? Is that agency? Or is that conditioning? Is
Yeah.
that the ultimate conditioning?
Because I mean, think about it. Like, we don't have other religions like taking up a whole state.
Yeah. No, it's not even just the whole state, even the bordering states. Like, I mean, you've seen it in California where whole
Mm-hmm.
communities are
Yeah.
Mormon. Like, it's and in Hawaii, they're making a huge presence there too, which that in itself is a whole shit show because
Mm-hmm.
no one should be there except for the
Absolutely.
natives. No one should be in
Absolutely.
Hawaii but the natives because
Mm-hmm.
they're taking up the infrastructure, they're taking up the resources, they're increasing the prices for everything. And some people like to argue that, well, tourism brings revenue. Okay, didn't you ever think there was revenue before tourism? There was revenue before tourism. They had to become dependent on tourism because of you guys.
Yeah.
Like,
And they've said themselves that they don't want it. But I find the question things really interesting because in Islam we're taught that it's okay to ask questions. Like you're
oh,
allowed to question things because it shows your humanity.
yeah.
And when you take these questions, now I will say, fair enough. Okay, a lot of the elders or like religious leaders, they are a little too cultural for me personally,
Mhm.
and they will judge you for asking certain questions. But I know for the fact that the book does not support that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I will say is it's very isolating because a lot of Muslims follow the culture, not the book.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect.
Yeah.
God knows I'm not. But I go off of the book as much as I possibly can. I don't really follow all this cultural interpretation nonsense because I've seen how it divides people. We're not supposed to let that
Yeah.
happen. So I go off of the book and it sucks because I have lost a lot of Muslim friends since doing
Yeah.
that because I don't know. I don't know. I think part of them feels judged, even though I don't give a crap what anyone believes.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a projection of their own guilt. Like,
Yeah.
I don't do birthdays anymore. So,
Yeah.
but people, I had a one friend tell me, like, she was like, "You're insinuating that I'm going to hell." And I was like, I literally never said that, nor did I think that. Also, because we're not allowed to
Yeah.
speculate where someone's going, because only God would know. So, I don't know where that came from. And I just was like, girl,
They're projecting their own fear. And it was so funny too, is I've never felt that way from you. I've never felt judged. And I'm not even Muslim. I'm not like I'm just here. but
Mm-hmm.
I have never once felt like judged by you. And and the thing is some people will, might consider what you say harsh. I think it's honest. And I think
Mm-hmm.
people forget that honesty isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Honesty is not a bad thing. A lot of things that you post about when you talk about Palestine, and people talk going to Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
What other reaction would you have to people going to Disneyland?
Mm-hmm.
Like there what other reaction would you have? Like
Yeah.
you're actively going to support a genocide because you
Mm-hmm.
want to get some $10 dried churros. Like that what else would they expect? Of course
Mm-hmm.
you're going to react in a way where it's like and they know it because they block you in advance. If they
Yeah.
they're blocking you in advance, so they know what they're doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the thing is like I don't feel pressure from you. I don't feel shame for you. I already know where I align, and
Mm-hmm.
we align very similarly.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you were to tell me like, oh hey, by the way, that might not be BDSA, or hey, this or that, I wouldn't feel judged. I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's looking out for me. She's looking out for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I think that's where people misunderstand too. And I know you've talked about it before where with your neurodivergence, it's very hard for you
Mm-hmm.
because people react differently. And I honestly wish people would think a bit more. And not,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds rude. I'm not calling people stupid. When I mean think, I mean critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
If you know someone is neurodivergent, there is no possible way that you can't think about how they could possibly react or how they would act. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying every neurodivergent person is the same. They're all different.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have an inkling. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that was a tangent, but I just had to say that. I was like, I don't understand people sometimes.
No, I appreciate you for saying that because I do make it a point never to judge people. I
Yeah.
judge people for being actually bad people. Like,
Yes.
that's the only thing I ever judge people for. Like, I have friends of varying religions, varying
Hmm.
beliefs. I don't give a flying shit, bro. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I just don't care. Like, I have friends that drink, I have
Hmm.
friends that party. Why would I give a fuck? I
Yeah.
don't I don't care. Like, I care about things like Disneyland. That's when I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
no. I've had
Yeah.
friends that'll post their titties on the internet. And I'm like, you know what, girl, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not gonna look at it.
Yeah.
Like, you do you.
Yeah.
Like, your relationship with your beliefs and your body is between you and God.
Yeah.
I don't give a crap.
I think that's people's expectations of what a content creator should look like. I
Mm.
wholly believe that's when because the thing is I don't you do much more than content creation. You build community, you inform people,
Mm-hmm.
but when you start building that following, it's almost like people think that you should have to act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't have to act a certain way. You are who you are. And just because you keep gaining followers and building this doesn't mean that you should have to change for them. You know,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to conform to that. And I think that's something that's such a pressure, especially on TikTok, that people put
Mm-hmm.
is like, you gain followers. Okay, well, you need to act a certain way. I do
Mm.
not have to act a certain way. I mean, Drew, she talks shit so much on men. And look at her now.
Yeah.
Like there's and I'm not saying you shit talk. What I'm saying is like how come one woman can be blunt and honest and you know it's it's okay, but another
Mhm.
woman can be blunt and honest and it's like, oh, she's judging. It's a double standard. It's a double standard and I don't get it.
Yeah. Honestly, I do understand it. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
do. It's Drew was authentically herself from day one, and she went viral for doing what she does now,
Yeah.
versus I went viral for getting married, and I just attracted the wrong crowd,
Yeah.
and they just stuck. And
Mm,
I mean, I don't know Drew, but I don't think she's neurodivergent, and
yeah.
my community, honestly, even to neurotypicals, not very forgiving. They're not
Yeah.
kind people. Like, I'm sorry, but like you don't see South Asians in a lot of representation. You see
Yeah.
East Asians, you see Hispanics, Latinos, you see Black people, but you don't see a lot of South Asians. And the reason for that is because our community does not uplift one another. So you will
Yeah.
not see a South Asian succeeding unless they market themselves to white people. Because
Mm.
the only people that will support us is white people. Like our people are just so freaking nasty and disgusting, and I feel so passionately about it. Like I
Yeah.
genuinely like it's sad. Like we have good people, of course we do, but like
Yeah.
majority of the time you will not see a South Asian succeeding because our people will not let them. And I do think that has a lot to do with colonization and the British pitting us against each other very early on. But it's yeah, I think that's why I get treated the way that I do and Drew doesn't, because Drew also comes from a community that, they're very community, right?
Yeah.
Like our community is not like that. Like we are, but like we aren't at the same time. Like
Yeah.
you'll be there when someone dies, but you're gonna talk shit about them at the same time,
Mm.
which is sad but true. Like even now, like this is not even about Mormonism at all, but like
I
I'll
feel like it's similar though. Like I feel like
yeah.
this is a good tangent to be on.
Yeah. Like I got rid of majority of my makeup because I was like,
Yeah.
I want to eventually get to a point where I don't wear makeup at all because that's the goal, right? But you're not gonna move mountains overnight. Like
Yeah.
little things are gonna happen. Like I gave away like everything. I had 20 drawers filled. I have five that aren't even filled now.
Yeah.
And people still are like, sister, you shouldn't wear makeup. And I'm like, dude, I know. We'll get
Yeah.
there. Like, we're not there yet, but we're not gonna be perfect overnight. But people
Yeah.
have that expectation of me where they're like, oh, you made one good change? Okay, now be perfect. And I'm like, dude,
Mm.
it's not gonna happen like that.
Yeah. And that's your own journey. Like, and I don't
Hmm.
think people realize too that that was a part of who you were for so long. I mean, I come
Hmm.
from the OG. I mean, we were making clothes out of paper.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that creative side of you has always been so passionate. And I think people forget to have grace because it's like, you don't judge people for their journey, but these
Hmm.
people are judging you for your journey. And it's like it's so weird how they can have that expectation,
Hmm.
like they are not God.
Yeah.
They are not the one who is gonna, judge where you go. They're not the ones who are gonna judge your journey. And you are making those steps. And it's like it's it's the thing that you said when it comes to, you know, they're they're expecting you to be perfect after one small victory. It's the
Hmm.
same thing in Mormonism. I mean, they they think that because you are doing these small things that are just great, that you are a
Hmm.
perfect person that you should be. And if you do one little thing that doesn't seem right,
Hmm.
you are shunned because you're not going on the journey that they expect you to go on.
And I think that's funny because in our religion, we're told these two stories really stuck with me as a kid. One story about this mass murderer, like like the man was a serial killer and he wanted to, and he like sought out like a religious leader and was like, "What can I do to repent?" And the guy said like, "Go to Mecca and make the religious pilgrimage." And he was like, "Okay." And he died on the way there. But he was forgiven and he went to heaven because he made the intent to be better. And then there's another story about a stripper who, or a prostitute, I don't know, one of the two, who was like after her shifts, she would feed like hungry dogs or something, and she went to heaven because of that good deed. So it's like we believe that by being good, you can be forgiven. And so it's crazy that you see people that will hold little things against you when, like, imagine judging that prostitute for being a prostitute.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she was doing good deeds. Now, that's not to say, like, go and sin and be like, I'm doing good things, PEMDAS,
Yeah.
right? But, like, she probably was in a bad situation and did what
Yeah.
she had to do. and then was trying to be good, and so God forgave her. Like
Yeah.
God is forgiving. So it's like it's crazy that people aren't.
Yeah. That PEMDAS part just took me out.
No, I really feel like there was this girl in middle school that like she used to wear like midi length
Mhm.
pants. And my friend was friends with both of us, but like we weren't friends. And so my friend was not Muslim, but she would be like, "How come she can do that and you can't?" And I was like, "Because it's like against my religion, so I just can't." And she goes, "Well, she told me that she does good deeds on the weekend to make up for it." And I was like, "Babes, it does not work like that. Like, I'm not gonna be like, let me murder this person and then I'm gonna pray later and they'll be fine." No, it does not work like that.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, very interesting. But okay, let's talk about, oh, really quickly, I feel like this is a good segue. How do Mormons view Muslims? I got that question a lot.
So this is the part that was very hard for me because we weren't really taught about any other religions like
Oh.
Muslims, Baptists, Protestants, Catholics. Um, but when I remember becoming an adult, the one thing that I was made aware of is that we, or I say we, Mormons, the prophets, all of them culturally were always cordial and almost respectful of the Muslim
Mm-hmm.
community in the sense where they respected their ideas and beliefs. And with us talking about it, and I'm not saying they're similar because
Mm-hmm.
ours is very, very iffy, but a lot, and it's a lot of what they think you guys believe. And I say they think because you've opened my eyes a lot to it's actually almost the opposite
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, but they believe is and they're respectful of you guys. And they actually teach the missionaries that when it comes to Muslims to be very careful of what if they try to proselyte to
Mm-hmm.
Muslims because they want to respect that Muslims have their ideology as well and their religion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't ever really taught anything bad about Muslims at all either. Like, I mean, I grew up in Fort Worth and I moved to
Mm-hmm.
Plano. And so we had a lot of Hinduism and Muslims in our
Mm-hmm.
community. And so for me, it was almost like an everyday, like,
Yeah.
interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was hard because like I wish I had something like juicy almost to say about it. But if
Mm-hmm.
I will say one thing is that they were very respectful of Muslims. The only religion they had stuff to bad say was the Jehovah's Witnesses, honestly. Like Mormons and
Oh,
Jehovah's
that's
Witnesses
crazy.
hate each other. Hate each other. And I'm talking like they call this thing called Bible bashing. So their missionaries of each other will go through their Bibles and like like a rap battle where you're like rapping and shit. It's like that with Bibles. And
What
so,
the heck?
yeah. So, and that's really the only religion that we've ever like, where I was taught like, oh, stay away from the Jehovah's Witnesses. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not good people. And and I will say, like I said, that's kind of refreshing to see because there is a um there is a history of um intolerance
Mm-hmm.
to um diversity in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that in the past and even currently, there's a intolerance to that. So that was something that was very interesting to me. I even asked Hunter, I was like, do you remember like ever hearing anything like when it comes to Muslims and stuff like that? And he was like, no, like we were always taught to be respectful of them and when we're proselyting, like to not proselyte to them because, we don't want to um affect their path to God and stuff like that. And I found that very interesting because I didn't even know that part about the missionaries. So,
Yeah, I didn't
but
know that either. I'm very
yeah,
fascinated by that.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think the only religions I ever heard anything bad about was the religions in South Asia. And
Okay.
I think that was because the British pit us against each other.
Yeah.
So But regardless, I will say, like I said, I was very lucky. I came from a family that, like, my mom would say, be wary because
Hmm.
I've heard these stories of, and I've seen it happen. I know people that it's happened to, like, Sikhs and Hindu men will prey on Muslim women
Mm.
and then, like, ruin her life essentially. And so I've heard those stories. So my mom was like, be wary, but we don't judge people
Yeah.
and we don't stereotype. So. I've had lots of Sikh friends. I don't have Hindu friends, not that many, because there's not many in the city.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I came across them, sure, I don't really care. I don't discriminate. I really just don't care. But
Yeah.
I am wary though, because I have had a Sikh friend, several actually, whose moms hated me passionately. So I made a mental note, like, okay, I'm not going to their house. I'm not getting too close because you don't know what
Yeah.
they're gonna do. Like there's
Yeah.
stories of people like spiking your drinks and
Oh,
I'm like,
goodness.
no, girl, I'm good off of that.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you one bit. That's terrifying.
Yeah. But I think that's a good segue for are people of color allowed to be Mormon and the rumors about Black people not being accepted. And I've always also wondered, like, I know that you mentioned growing up in Texas, so it wasn't really that much of an issue, but then like in Utah, like when you were a part of the church in Utah, I mean, I guess you already said it, like they didn't talk to you. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that was more because you weren't white or because you had tattoos?
I feel like it's more of the tattoos because
Mm,
I'm a very whitewashed Hispanic. I mean,
mm,
I have freckles, I'm pale, um, and when I speak Spanish, I mean, I have an accent, but it's not
mm,
super prevalent. And so I have the ability to fit in more
mm,
than, someone who is, darker than me,
mm,
has an accent probably. Um, and, my mom has had a hard time assimilating here in Utah. In
mm,
Texas, our ward had a lot of immigrants. And so
mm,
she had people she could connect with. And here she's surrounded by white women in white
mm,
houses. She we talked about this because she felt even more lonely than usual. My mom's not a very social woman,
mm,
but she could not connect to anyone because of that. And when it comes to people of color, the church likes to camouflage themselves and kind of be like, oh yeah, we said this in the past, we don't agree with it now, type thing.
mm,
But it's like, but you had that in the past. Like, that's not just something you can wipe away. And
mm,
this is something I had to make notes on because there's a lot. So the first question, are people called allowed to be Mormon? Yes. They are. And the thing is so Black people being accepted into the church, Joseph Smith was not from what I remember and the research I conducted, it was not Joseph Smith's rhetoric to be racist. It was his next in line prophet, Brigham Young, which
mm,
BYU is named after. Brigham Young came from being Protestant, and Protestants back then were very racist and very racially motivated. So
mm,
he's the one who brought that rhetoric of Black people cannot have the priesthood. Black people
mm,
cannot, or Black men cannot have the priesthood. Black people cannot receive the temple ordinances, which in Mormonism, the ordinances in the temple are what gets you to salvation.
mm.
So Black people essentially could not receive the saving ordinances to eternal life.
So they
Um,
believe that Black people could go to heaven, essentially.
basically. Um, and it's interesting because when it comes to Black people, that's where that history comes in with the church. Black men were not able to get the priesthood until 1978. 1978 was when they were able to get the priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in Utah, there were not a lot of Black people at all. And I've had a lot of Black friends who have come to Utah and be like, people stare at me like crazy. Like people look like they're afraid of me, which is
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous, but that's just a normal here. Um, and Joseph Smith even, I mean, they even had like Joseph Smith had black people who were his advisors. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't him, it was Brigham Young. And because Joseph Smith was killed at a young age, unfortunately we
Mhm.
had to deal with Brigham Young, which again, BYU was named after. So that racially motivated history is still ingrained in the church when you named your college after a racist man.
Mhm.
Um, and then the last question, does that apply to other people of color? Um, yes. And actually the Mormon doctrine has more conflicting racial standards towards
Mhm.
Native Americans than
Oh.
Black people. So, I mean, if so, I talked about it earlier, but the Book of Mormon is kind of, where everyone bases Mormons off of. The Book of
Mhm.
Mormon is their book. Joseph
Yeah.
Smith translated the plates, which turned into the Book of Mormon, and it's basically passages written by past prophets before Christ.
Mhm.
And again, they're saying this is all happening in America. And so the church, they might change their stance, based on what publicly is
Mhm.
happening. Like, oh, like, slavery ended. Oh, black people can get the priesthood because God told them, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So in the Book of Mormon, in the first book of Nephi, Nephi was a prophet. It starts off with the Lehi. Lehi is the dad, and he has four sons: Nephi, Laman, Lemuel, Sam. I don't know. There's one more brother. I don't remember his name.
Mhm.
But the church believes that Native Americans are descended from Lamanites. Laman and Nephi were the brothers. Nephi
Mhm.
was what you would consider the good brother. He was
Mhm.
who Lehi was proud of, God shone upon. Um, Laman was the oldest, and he was jealous of Nephi.
Mhm.
He was jealous of Nephi's recognition from their father, recognition from God. So Laman, with the help of Lemuel, um, plotted to kill Nephi. Um, Laman tried to kill Nephi, but Nephi, being empowered by God, um, it didn't. Basically, Laman couldn't kill Nephi,
Mhm.
and that's when the Lamanites started. And so it's almost like a curse, but basically Laman and Lemuel's descendants were darker skin after that.
Mhm.
And like I said, the church believes that Native Americans are descended from Lamanites. So when the pioneers moved to Utah and the Native Americans were there, they believed they were Lamanites,
Mhm.
descended from this wicked man.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of where that rhetoric comes in that
Mhm.
Native Americans are descended from evil man. Black people are descended from Cain, who is also evil. Because I believe someone asked about the dark skin curse.
Mhm.
That's referring to the mark of Cain. So there's Cain and Abel, again, brothers. Cain tried to kill Abel. Cain was considered evil. He abandoned his people. Cain was cursed to immortality, basically, and was cursed with a mark, which is darker skin and a flat nose.
Mhm.
And God, to make Cain recognizable,
Mhm.
so that way people wouldn't kill him, gave him dark skin and a black nose or a flat nose. And so that basically is where that comes in, where black people are descended from Cain. Um, and you know, Mormons now will be like, oh, like that's not what they meant, blah 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 blah, this and that.
Wait.
Prophets have said racist things. Let me share an excerpt of this because there was a prophet, Spencer W. Kimball. Um I'm trying to remember what year he was prophet. Um it was not I mean, it was not that long ago. It was probably around the same I think it was around the same time that black men could get the priesthood. But he said at a general conference, which general conference happens twice a year. General conference is like basically the Mormon Super Bowl. Like the prophets speak to the masses. So this was October 1960. So it was actually before it. He said,
Mhm.
and I quote, the little member girl, 16, sitting between the dark father and mother, and it was evident she was several shades lighter than her parents. These young members of the church are changing to whiteness and to delightsomeness. So he is attributing them repenting and being a part of the church to making their skin lighter, meaning they're, yeah, yeah. This is in 1960. This isn't even
It's
100 years ago.
insanity to me.
Yeah. So he literally believed that black skin could be changed lighter. And as far as, the skin color, because again, I'm someone who likes to look up stuff. In
Mm-hmm.
Second Nephi, chapter 5, verse 21 in the Book of Mormon, it said, "And he had caused the cursing to come upon them, yea, even a sore cursing because of their iniquity. For behold, they had hardened their hearts against him, that they had become like unto a flint. Wherefore, as they were white and exceedingly fair and delightsome, that they might not be enticing unto my people, the Lord God did cause a skin of blackness to come upon them." And he's referring to Lamanites. Yeah. So is the church better for people of color now? Yes and no. They're more accepted, but that does not change how members view them. But you also can't change what is said and written in the past. That is that is from the Book of Mormon. Spencer W. Kimball was a prophet in 1960. Like, Mormons can argue and say like, "Oh, but we've changed," but it's like it's systemic racism, just like our country. Like, it was founded, not, I shouldn't say founded because technically Joseph Smith, like, he was okay, I guess, with that part. But still, like, you have it in your roots,
Mm-hmm.
intertwined into your religion. There's no escaping it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, people of color are allowed, but they also have, they're treated differently. Another case was, and this happened recently. So in BYU, Hawaii, so in BYU, the dress code,
Mm-hmm.
men can't have beards or long hair.
Oh.
So, you know, some black men, black people, they wear dreads or locks as a protective hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the students who was attending BYU Hawaii, which you would think in Hawaii, like, you have natives who are also there, like, they
Yeah.
would be more respectful towards another marginalized person.
Mm-hmm.
He had, I think it was either dreads or locks, and they were basically telling him that he had to cut it off or he couldn't attend. And he was like, "But this is a protective hairstyle. Like, this is how I have to wear my hair." And it was a whole thing. There's so a really informative page on Instagram. They're called the Black Menaces. And I bring them up because I personally am not, I mean, I'm not black.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't give insight personally, as much as a black person could regarding the Mormon Church. Black
Yeah.
Menaces on Instagram, they touch on people of color experiences, um, at BYU in the church because they are black people.
Mm-hmm.
And they touched on this. And it was just crazy to me because it's like, if because a lot of men sometimes don't follow the rules, like white men,
Yeah.
but a person of color wearing a protective hairstyle, and they're like, you have to cut it off. Like, it's just crazy to me, like, especially in this day and age where if you have members who are women who are wearing short skirts and not showing, like, not wearing garments, like, you would think they would be more concerned about keeping that covenant rather than just a dress code at a school.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy to me. And so, I have friends who are people of color who are still members. And if that's what makes them happy, that makes them happy. But do
Yeah.
I believe personally that the church is a welcoming space for them? No, I do not. Unless for some reason you're in a ward in Africa, like, they have wards there, so of course everyone there is black. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
probably feel a community there. But like here in Utah, uh-uh, no way. Like, it's just, and it's hard for me too, because, like, my family's Hispanic, but my mom is very pale, she's very white. Um, and so she doesn't really get anything, unless people hear her accent.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if my family had been darker, like, would
Mm-hmm.
they consider us Lamanites? Like, And my mom is one of the most faithful Mormons ever. She does
Mm-hmm.
everything she's supposed to. She's a faithful member. She believes in the church wholeheartedly. Like, it's just sad to me because I'm someone who, if I find out the past of something is rooted in something, I can't see it differently. I
Mm-hmm.
can't all of a sudden forgive them.
Yeah.
I will start questioning, like, why am I even still part of it?
Yeah.
Like,
Which is
and
fair.
yes, and that comes even with when it comes to the LGBTQ community in the church. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have such a hard time with friends who say they are accepting and then they stay in the church. And and the reason is because you're supporting an organization that won't even allow same-sex eternal marriages,
Mm-hmm.
that they have kids and they can't even be sealed to them. You're basically showing support for a church that probably won't ever change that unless they have to or God ordains it. And to me, that's not showing that you love them. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I get that for other religion. Like, I get like not accepting what they're doing, but I loving them as a person because I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in that. But again, it's just hard for me. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't see past that. I can't see past the racist rhetoric, the racist scripture. Like, there's no looking past it. And so there's people of color in the church, but I I don't feel like it's a safe place for them. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand where you're coming from because like that's kind of how I feel with America being built on
Yeah.
what it was built on.
Oh yeah.
And even like with Pakistan, like I don't like celebrating Independence Days. I don't like 4th of July. Like I feel like how can you feel joy when there's still so much corruption?
Yeah. And like I wish I could say there would be a solution for the Mormon church to
Mm-hmm.
be different in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I honestly I believe it's corrupt. I believe that it's flawed and I wish that people could see they could have their own relationship with God without a middleman in the middle. And
Yeah.
it's hard because the one thing the church provides is structure. You have
Mm-hmm.
a whole guideline to how you should behave, how your life should go. You don't really have to think differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see why people would be hesitant to leave because you lose that community, you lose that roadmap, you lose all this. But you also gain that freedom and independence to have your relationship with God in the way you want and you feel like He would want,
Mm-hmm.
while also being authentic to who you are and not having to fit in any mold. Because that's essentially what the church is, the mold. You have to
Yeah.
fit in this mold, and if you don't fit perfectly, you won't be accepted truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes sense to question that.
Yeah. I don't know. That like I said, that was a whole it's just there's I mean, I could honestly talk about the church all day. It's just so hard for me because it's like I I wish that I could support because maybe there's goodness that comes from it. And like I said, I have people I adore who are in the church.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see it in the same light anymore. I just can't.
Mm-hmm. No, that's understandable. I mean, I feel bad, but I do see it as a cult, to be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
based off
Yeah.
of what I've previously heard, and then even more so now that I've learned even more during this conversation. And it is sad, but cults often make people very happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the sad thing too is they really only benefit those at top. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that it I mean, if you think about it, the church could help so many, and I'm not saying they don't help because they have something called the Bishop's Warehouse or Bishop's Storehouse where they have free food that they can give to members,
Mm-hmm.
service projects. But like with the amount of money they have, they could fix so much, so
Yeah.
much. And like people say, oh yeah, but they've given to charities and they've built temples for other people and they've built church. I don't care about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
A a church isn't going to provide someone a home.
Yeah.
It's not going to fix poverty. It's not going to fix
Mhm.
underdeveloped communities. It's
Mhm.
not going to help families who, especially now with everything going on, like it's just the church isn't gonna the church they have enough money to fix it. And they haven't, and they probably won't ever. And they'll probably just keep growing and money, and
Mhm.
it's just sad.
Speaking of what's going on, so that one professor that I had that was Mormon is
Hmm.
Mormon. He loved to say Israel. He loved it.
They Mormons, so I could be wrong because the geography is not my thing. Jerusalem, is it not part of Israel or near Israel, if I remember correctly?
Technically on the map it's Israel, but
Okay,
yeah.
so Jerusalem to them is the birthplace of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So I there are members who will take tours and travel to Jerusalem to Israel because they believe that's holy land, holy ground.
I
So
guess what
that's
confuses me though is because we believe the same thing,
mhm.
but that's a part of Palestine.
They don't see it that way, if I'm being honest. They don't. And a lot of, and this is sad, a lot of old members that I've seen on Facebook support Israel and not Palestine, which is it's
Mm.
sad. It's so sad, but I can see why they do because again, they did the same thing to the Native Americans in Utah. Like
Mm-hmm.
they
It's
took
normalized to them.
it's normalized. They,
Mm-hmm.
to them, they were supposed to be here, and to them, Israel was supposed to occupy the land that Palestine is. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can see it's sad because I don't want to see why they support Israel, but I do
I
see.
mean, yeah, I honestly I can see it too. Like when because a lot of Hindus also support Israel.
Mm,
And I can see why, because the British told them that they are entitled to a lot of land, which is why
mhm,
they chased out all the Muslims from their homes and still torture them to this day. When, I don't understand why they think it's okay, but I understand that it's normalized to them,
yeah,
and that's why they support it.
yeah,
But I think as human beings, if we're not I would never feel entitled to anyone's anything, so
yeah,
I can't understand that entitlement at all, but I can understand that you are a product of your environment. And if
yeah,
that's what you're raised around, as sad as it is, and it shouldn't be this way, but you're gonna be like, this is normal.
yeah. It doesn't even take that much critical thinking. It's just they don't want to.
Hmm.
They feel informed by what's surrounding them and they don't feel like they need to seek it anywhere else.
Yeah, that is sad.
Yeah.
But okay, last question, which I have so many questions about this one question. So their question was, what do Mormons think about people who say they loophole the faith too much, like the whole no coffee because caffeine, but have a lot of soda, which I guess my first question is why no coffee?
So they have something called the Word of Wisdom, which is basically a guideline for how to keep their bodies healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, it states no like hot beverages, like coffee. It doesn't explicitly say coffee and tea, but that's what they garnered from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because we were told the caffeine, but then we would have soda. But we
Yeah,
just were told, okay, but also coffee and tea have like stimulants in them, like. And so I think it's just become so normalized that Mormons find loopholes for things because Mormons find loopholes for sex even.
that's what I was gonna ask about. I have
Oh
heard
yeah.
interesting things.
So there's something called derfing, there's something called soaking. I think they're about the same thing. But basically the gist of it is so a lot of beds in dorms are like bunk beds.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it's two people on top and they're just laying on each other and someone underneath is pushing the bed So technically, it's an outside force causing them to have sex and not them themselves. I've also heard of people using the girl's armpit or men using the girl's armpit as a loophole. Um, Armpit crabs, what develops from that. And anal, they believe that, the butthole is the ultimate loophole. It's it's so crazy to me because like if you have to find that many loopholes for things, do you not think that
Mhm.
something is like, I don't know, different, crazy a bit?
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like at
and
that point you're putting so much effort into it, like just do it.
exactly, exactly. And it's because of that stigma where it's like sex is a natural human reaction. I mean,
Mhm.
we want connection and that the act creates endorphins in your
Mhm.
brain, which makes you happy. So of course that's something, you're going to seek. But there's such a shameful thing about masturbation and sex in the church. And it's kind of seen as only a thing to be used to procreate,
Mhm.
like for the man. It's not seen as something pleasurable or anything. And so if you have sex before marriage, we were told you would get excommunicated if you had sex before marriage. Like we were threatened with it,
I don't
which
feel like that's I feel like that's the equivalent of a parent beating their child when they act up. Like that's not actually
Mhm.
teaching the child anything.
No, like it's teaching shame, it's teaching
Mhm.
repression. And I mean, if you look into psychology of things also, and I'm not saying this is with everyone, I'm just saying this is a psychological statistic that happens.
Mhm.
Some men who have violent tendencies and are taught to repress their sexual um emotions,
Mhm.
sometimes that's what creates them harming and doing, raping, all of that stuff. Like
Mhm.
it's that's kind of psychologically because they repressed it for so long, they lash out, and then that's the only way they can seek happiness because they were repressed from it. And so when you teach people to repress those sexual tendencies, it also teaches them that it's like it's shameful almost. There are actually a lot of divorces happen in the Mormon culture. A lot of it has to do with sex because they're having sex and they're like, something's wrong. I'm not enjoying this. And it's because they haven't been taught anything. If you don't
Mhm.
want people to have sex, I don't know what to tell you. Like it's a human thing. You can
Mhm.
teach them to have safe sex and,
Mhm.
birth control, preventative measures, like that's fine. But like if you are teaching them just nothing about it, it's just harmful in the end. It doesn't do anything but create harm. Like it's like I said, it's a natural thing. And I'm not saying you just go out in the street and have sex. Like I'm not
Mhm.
saying that, but like
Yeah.
it's not something that you should be ashamed of. But like I said, because there are so many things where it's teaching shame and shame and shame, they feel
Mhm.
like they have to find a different way to, you know, show or express that they are enjoying something. Like again with the soda, like coffee and tea. I love chai tea. I love it. Love it. Coffee, can't do it. Makes me have to run. Like I can't do it. But soda for them is such like it's almost like, oh, I'm doing something naughty. I'm drinking soda. Like
Mhm.
it's
I
just
just find it interesting because it's like, oh, coffee is bad for your body, like treat your body like a temple, but like, how is that much soda healthy?
exactly. And it's not, but and again, Utah has thrived on that market. There's like 10 different brands of soda shops here. Like coffee shops in Utah, there are a few. Soda shops is what they have.
Mhm.
Soda Vine, Sodalicious, Thirst, Quench It, Swig, Fizz. These are all soda shops. It's like
Mhm.
you're going through a coffee shop and it's all soda and snacks. And they
That's
also
crazy.
teach something about like red meat, like being sparing with red meat
Mhm.
doesn't stop them from going out and killing deer and elk and buffalo to get all that meat. Like
Mhm.
it's just it's that double standard. Like
Yeah.
it's just so prevalent. The hypocrisy is just so prevalent in the church. Like they will shame someone for it, but they don't realize that they're doing things in their own way that are also
Mhm.
sinning.
Yeah. I didn't even know there were that many different kinds of sodas until I watched that show and I was like, oh wow, like people
Taco
do
Bell
that.
made a drink based off of Taylor Paul. The heavy
Yeah,
cream
I
and
saw
yep,
that.
yep.
That is insanity.
And it's so weird too because it's like these women are going to make so much bank, but it's like I wish they would televise people who are how to explain this. I don't have any, there's nothing wrong with showing the fun side of things at all.
Hmm.
But I wish they would televise more the struggles and the raw happenings of ex-Mormons or members. Like, because not every day is like that. Not every day is coming home to your nice house. And I'm not, if they've worked hard for it, good for them. But that's not the reality of everyone's situations.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I work overnights. I go to night school and I have a voice. Like, it's like, that's not the reality for most people. The reality is people like me who are working and working and working and, struggle with the idea that all these pretty Mormons, and I don't want to generalize because they can have trauma that happens to them. Everyone
Hmm.
has something happening and that's valid,
Hmm.
but it's hard to connect when they don't outwardly show it.
Yeah.
Like,
They're
I
not
go to,
relatable at all.
yeah, like I go to work and I'm crying. Like, people will see me crying.
Hmm.
Like, it's not relatable. And I am excited for a second season because I do love drama, but like, I don't know. It's also triggering in a sense because it just reminds me of what I'm surrounded by.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, but I think that people don't want to see reality. They want to see a fantasy. And
Yeah.
I think that's what fascinates them so much. Because even like realistically, if you look at like influencers who blow up, it's always the ones who can go on the lavish trips, who
Oh yeah.
have the lavish houses and the big closets and the fancy halls. Like normal average people typically
Yeah.
don't go viral and don't make it.
Yeah.
Because you've got to
You're
keep
not wrong.
with what people want to see, and that's just not realistic. Like I remember when
No.
I went to England, I think I gained like 7,000 followers, and
Oh wow.
it was very interesting to me because I was like, okay, like this is all that you care about is me traveling, and then like I came back home and like I think I gained like 100 in the past year, like unless there's drama, then people are like, hello, but like
Yeah.
I try to stay out of that, but people don't want to see average people that they relate to, which is also funny because they'll also be talking shit on Reddit about like, oh, so and so quit their job to do influencing. They're not relatable anymore. I'm unfollowing. Okay, like what do you want? You don't want people that make it. You don't want
Yeah.
average people making it. You want to see already rich people that you can shit on. That's what they want.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
they're not gonna, it's sad, but like they're not gonna show the reality of the church and the effect that it has on people because then at that point I think that they'd say it turns into a documentary
Oh
and
yeah.
they're gonna get so much backlash versus now people are gossiping, people are talking about it, right? Like it's the drama, like that's all that
Yeah.
they care about.
Yeah.
I mean, I
You're
think it
not
was a
wrong.
$7 million contract.
Say what?
It was a $7 million contract.
That's just crazy to me. That's just
Hmm.
so, I mean, good for them, get that bag. But also like some of them are Trump supporters and I'm like,
A lot of them. I found out after the show. I was like, okay, I'm not shocked, but like, girl, why are you so open
a,
about it? Like, are you not
a
ashamed?
lot of a lot of Mormons are. It's sad. A lot of Mormons
Yeah.
are. You look tired.
No, I'm okay. I just have circulation issues. So I
Ooh,
have to change positions a lot because I my circulation will cut off and it's really annoying. But yeah.
I
But also
bet.
I stayed up till 4 a.m. sewing, so I shouldn't have done that.
That's okay. We all do things. Just have fun in the moment.
Yeah, I just don't have time, life is just so busy that I was like, I just need to I really wanted to get the project done. I was like, I need to just get this
Yeah.
done.
Did you finish it?
Almost all of it, yeah. There's just a few finishing touches that I need to get to because I want to wear it on Tuesday and I won't have time to do it tomorrow.
Uh,
I was like, I need to just finish this today, and I have to go to my mom's house and shower because I'm not showering in cold water.
oh, uh-uh.
Mm-mm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are they gonna fix it?
We're currently talking to the insurance people because someone had told us to go through the house insurance. So hopefully they'll
Yeah.
pay for it, and so we're just waiting on that. Yeah.
Hopefully they fix it because now having hot water is mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I have been avoiding washing my face and I feel disgusting,
Oh.
but my house is also not insulated, so it's very cold.
Oh.
And the heater doesn't run very well. So it's just really, really cold and I'm not putting cold water on my face. I'm just not doing it.
Oh yeah, don't do that. That
I've just
probably would
been
not help.
I've just been crusty and that's fine.
That is okay. I didn't shower for like 3 days. Because I worked overnight last night. And so I woke up, I was like, I need to shower at least. Because my hair is like in 5, 10 different directions and like it was greasy. I was like, I need to shower at least. I can't just sit like this anymore.
I get that. Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I'm like, I need a shower. Yeah.
How long have you been wearing your hijab now?
I started in January of this year.
It felt like it's been longer.
No, it's lit January 23rd.
Has it? It feels like it's been longer. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like your devotion, like it feels like it's been like years.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's been such a fast change for me. I like even
Yeah.
thinking about it like this time last year, like I was prepping for Halloween, like,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, Halloween who?
It's over. The only reason I do it is for the boys. Like,
Mm,
for Dallas to do trick or treating. But like other than that, I'm like, I just want to stay home and sleep.
that's
I don't want
fair,
to do
especially
anything.
with how busy you are.
It's so crazy. And today I still have to do homework and then meal prep and dinners for this week. And then take a nap because I work tonight and then tomorrow night. And so, because my schedule is just like, it's just so crazy. It's so busy.
Well, I
But
appreciate that you took the time out to do this because this was a long one, but
I was nervous, if I'm being honest. I was so
really,
nervous. Well, because like, I mean, I'm open about some stuff on my Instagram story, but like, I, I guess I still have this thing where like I'm scared of how people view me because I want to make them proud.
mm-hmm,
But I was talking to Hunter and he was like, no, don't be nervous. He was like, you have so much insight and like,
mm-hmm.
like this is your life. Like, you shouldn't feel ashamed of it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. You're so right.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so
And you're
then
very
I
well
was like,
spoken as well. Like I feel like it was very educational and well worded and very insightful.
no, I feel the same way about you because I didn't know a lot of because like I said, to be honest, we didn't learn anything. And
Hmm.
maybe that's just me also not having done the research about different religions, but like I didn't know any of that about Muslims. And if I mean, and part of me, maybe this is just me like speculating, but I felt like it was a lot stricter. I don't know why. Like maybe it's just that worldly view that I just hadn't broken. But like a lot of what you said was like it was kind of nice to hear, you
Hmm.
know, when it comes to like, no one's supposed to judge you, like that's between you and God and stuff like that. Like I was like, this is what religion should be like.
Hmm.
Like
I won't
it's
lie, it is pretty strict, but
yeah,
I think growing up, a lot of the rules aren't gonna ever make sense to children
yeah,
because you just aren't at that brain development level to understand these things. It's a lot of discipline. The religion is very
yeah,
disciplined and very like for your well-being and like with the premarital sex example, like it is not allowed because
yeah,
God knew the way that men are, like,
yeah,
and how they will take advantage of that. And it's funny because actually recently, I'd say fairly recently, the rules in the United States with the religious elders have changed, where they
Oh,
make you get legally married first before religious married because men would do the religious ceremony, have sex with the girl, and then divorce her. Yeah. So they changed that recently here. I don't know, I'd say fairly recently. There's still some like sketchy ones that'll do it for you, but
yeah,
that's why, because it's not that's not allowed. Like you know you're
yeah,
good for that. Come on. But God knew the way that men were, and that's why premarital sex is not allowed because it will just harm you. And I mean,
yeah,
I feel like I see that in a lot of my non-Muslim friends. Like
yeah,
you have sex with someone and then you break up and you're like heartbroken because, you gave them your all and
yeah,
whatever and or you got taken advantage of and it's just like it's so sad to see that and it makes me understand. Like that's
yeah,
I think that's what made it click for me is like, oh, that's why.
yeah.
And also with like with safe sex, like you can get diseases from
Oh yeah,
or STIs, like, so it makes sense to me now as an adult. It was never something I was ever interested in because, neurodivergent and I'm very like my sister used to call me a prude because I don't like to even look at myself. Like
yeah,
I'm not into that. It's just a thing, right? But I always wondered. I've always wondered
yeah,
about everything. I've questioned everything. Like, why? Why? Why?
yeah,
And I didn't get it as a kid, but I get it now, especially
yeah,
after seeing everyone else. But yeah, even with dating, like dating, I don't know. I mean, it sounds a lot stricter than it is. Realistically, you should have parents open-minded enough to supervise you dating without violating you.
yeah,
Unfortunately, culturally, that doesn't work.
yeah,
Religiously, that's how it should work. But you don't date because you get your heart broken. You
yeah.
bend the rules, you give in to temptations, and then you do get screwed over, and then you're distraught. So it's like it's all for your well-being. It is pretty strict and it's all about discipline, but it makes sense as an adult.
In the way you explained it, it does make sense.
Mm,
I don't know. That's very, now I want to, now I kind of want to research. It's very fascinating to me. I love, like, I wanted to be an anthropologist for when I was like, younger,
mm.
study religions, cultures, mythologies, and my mom was like, "You'll never get a job doing that." So I didn't do it, but I
You
always
totally
wanted to do
could,
it.
though. You could be like a teacher.
True, yeah. But and so that's always something that I've been fascinated by. But I feel like that was also very educational for me because I didn't know any of that.
Well, if you do look into it, just feel free to ask questions because one thing that was a learning curve for me was the way that the book is written, it's written in the context of the prophet's time,
Okay.
not today's time.
Yeah.
So you read certain things and you're like, yo, this sounds really bad. But like in his eyes, it wasn't. And
Yeah.
that's when it makes sense. Like there's this one example of like, not verbatim, but like when they were being sieged or something, then the women were like giving up their land and the men came home to like no land and like reprimanded their wives. In today's time, you would read that and be like, oh shoot, like you whooped your wife. But in the time of the prophet, like all he said was like, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Like that's such a vast difference. Like
Yeah.
you can reprimand someone in the prophet's terms, which is like, yo, don't do that. But like you can't, but like a lot, I won't lie, stereotypically, yes, like a lot of Muslim men will beat their wives and be like, the book says that I can reprimand her. No, girl, it does not say you can whoop her. Like you took that out of context.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind because I read that and I was like, yo, and then I had to ask questions. And I was like, okay.
I love that. I love that you ask questions. And I'll ask you because you know me, I'm not hesitant to ask. Will ask.
Okay, you look tired, so I'm gonna let you go now. I know you have a lot on your plate today.
A
But thank
little
you
bit.
so much, seriously. Like I am obsessed. Like I learned so much and it was great.
I appreciate it. For me, you made me feel like I had a voice, and it's nice to feel validated in that. So
Mhm.
I appreciate it so much. I really
Yeah, of
do.
course. And if you ever want to talk about anything else, like let me know and we can set something up.
Okay, I will.
Okay, well, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Have a nice shower.
Thank you.
Okay, see ya.
Bye. Okay, so that was our episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if there's any other topics that you guys want to hear about. I love that. I feel like that was very educational. I'm sorry for those watching that saw me moving positions all the time and like flopping over. I'm literally so tired, but yeah, that was a great episode. Thank you guys for watching. Please follow my podcast, subscribe to my channels, like the podcast, leave a comment if you want to, and I'll see you guys next time.